meeting to order. For some announcements before we get started, the West Newbury Food Pantry has a wish list that's in the packet here. Thank you to all who attended annual tree lighting. It's a great experience. Santa came briefly because he was sick, so that was fun. The Community Preservation Committee is holding their annual public hearing next Wednesday, December 10th at 7 p.m. We have a hefty balance in the CPA fund, and this is your opportunity to tell the committee how we should spend it. So please join that. There will be a remote link for that as well. Page School Concert and Holiday Lunch is December 11th at 11:30. This is at the Page School, correct, Angus?
No, it's here in the annex.
Okay. Please RSVP at CUA@wnewbury.org or by phone so that we know how many people to expect. And as always, a call for volunteers is a complete list on the home webpage under the volunteer tab. Regular business, item A is public comment. Anybody wishing to make a public comment? That's online. Okay. Item B, town manager updates.
All right, first item, we got a renewal letter from Maya on our insurance, which was some welcome news as we head into budget season. They are granting us a 0% increase in our rate for FY27 and a maximum 2.5% for FY28. That's based on our favorable loss history, and so it's very good news. That applies to our property liability and workers' comp coverage. So I wanted to share that information. Next item, I know I've told the board a number of times previously, but as a result of a change with our vendor Civic Plus, it's the same vendor, but they're moving to a different platform. So we are in the process of migrating the website to a new page. Civic Plus has imposed that on all of their clients, and we didn't have a choice on that. The timing is really tough for us because even though they do a fair amount of the work to migrate everything, there is going to be a lot of work. So just Tuesday morning, myself, Amanda, Max, and Rebecca participated in the training, and there's a lot to do. So I just wanted to kind of be upfront about that because Civic Plus has been saying for a number of months that they want this fully migrated by the end of the calendar year, but they're now a couple of months later than what they told us they would be in terms of some of the rollout issues. And it was just Tuesday morning was the very first time that we saw a dummy draft of the site, and it was nowhere near done. So Rebecca's been the primary liaison with them. She's been doing a great job, and she's really pressing them for a lot of specifics on dates. Are they in fact going to hold to their timeline at the end of the calendar year? Because if so, this is something that is really going to fall very heavily on all four of us in my office with Amanda, Max, myself, and Rebecca. So obviously we're hoping they won't hold to that timeline, although once we get into January, it's really no better because we're then in the budget town meeting season. So it's something we are very concerned about, just in terms of time impact. So
I guess is it gonna look different? I mean, what is the upgrade or the functionality?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, actually, I know I had mentioned back in the late summer, that they offered a free transfer to kind of a base level site, and then they offered more of a bells and whistles for the $5,000. Rebecca and I did participate in a couple of info sessions last summer, and we felt that the extra money was going to be worthwhile. And so town meeting did approve that with a budget amendment. We have signed the contract to get the upgrade. So what I pulled up is the town of Reading site, and they have their own kind of look and feel. Ours is going to be different, but this has some of the additional features that we're going to have. We'll have a different, look and feel, but some of it has to do with the layout, the number of buttons and shortcut buttons.
It's on the agenda center.
I'm sorry.
The agenda center.
Where will I find that?
That's a good question.
So, we're gonna have the embedded Facebook, just like we do now. That was something we would have lost with the free transfer. So that's part of the upgrade. One thing we think is gonna be really cool, it's gonna be some adjustment for people. But right now, as you know, we just have a single calendar on the website. This will have, as you see here, you can toggle between meetings, and community events. So that's gonna allow us, I think, for instance, on some of the road races or some of the other community events to have those have a higher prominence on the website, because we always debate, we generally use the website calendar for public meetings, posted meetings. Every now and then we'll put something that's like an event, but we don't really use it for that, because if you do, it could easily drown out the public meetings, which would be, counter to our kind of core mission on public meetings. So residents will be able to toggle back and forth between meetings and community event calendar. So, yeah, there's a number of features that, and the look and feel is much more spiffy with the upgrade. So we did, I think on the back end of this, however long that takes, I think it's gonna be a good site, and I know it's gonna be a good site. I think it's gonna be better than our current site in some qualitative ways. But there's a lot of work to migrate a website, and one of the questions that we haven't got an answer to, and we're really pressing on, is what is the cutoff date where, because they're putting, all this time toward migrating all the content. There's a point at which they will stop doing that, at which point any change to the site subsequent to that will go to us. So that could be updates to pages, it could be posting of materials, posting it to agendas, that let's say there's a lag time of even a couple of days.
Longer, I think.
Yeah, well, I think it will be longer, but
Yeah.
even if it was a couple of
Imagine.
days, it's, so that's gonna, not just our office, but every user of the website keeping track of what changes they made after that date, because that's gonna need to be manually done on a new page. So it really, when we learned about this last late spring, I knew this was just like the last thing we needed, because it's a lot of work. And as you guys might not recall, because neither of you were on the board yet, but back in 2019, we did do a complete facelift of the webpage. And that was something that I initiated and the board supported, and I think it resulted in a much better page than we used to have. And I know very well how much work that was, because I did the same thing up north in my last job. So I just wanted to be upfront that, like, we're still waiting for some answers, but in addition to us managing the migration, we're gonna need to get all the other website users trained, and so they feel supported. And that's a lot of people within this building, and there's some committee members who have designees who update the page. One of the changes will be that there's gonna need to be an approval. So that, let's say a committee updates its page, that's gonna send a notice to our office to then click a button before it's actually posted, so it won't be live posted. So there's some administrative changes that will be part of the transition of the new page, so.
Great, thanks.
Next item, update on the Whittier. I included a couple of recent letters, the one that the working group had sent to the MSBA with their response. I assume you shared my dismay at
I
their.
understand the response.
Yeah, it wasn't clear to me if they saying, okay.
They're saying yes or no.
It was it wasn't that well worded. I took it as generally, no, that, that you're gonna, that the new feasibility study is gonna need to include. Yeah, I just reread it a short time before the meeting, and it's, let's see, that's not the.
I took it that you could actually use it and update it, but there's no clarity on the answer. It just, I think somebody's gotta get back to them and say, what are you saying? Yes or no? Well,
Yeah, I agree. It wasn't clear to me.
Okay, all right,
I
good.
have no idea.
Um,
I'm on the committee.
So this
Yeah, I mean,
hasn't been discussed by the committee yet.
Huh?
It has.
The response has not been
Yeah.
discussed. Yeah, we have our first meeting of the regional agreement advisory committee a week from Wednesday on the 17th.
See, one thing phrase they have in here, so the previous feasibility study should be shared with the district's future consultants and used to address any changes from the previously proposed project.
Mhm.
That's almost saying that you can use the previous data and don't have to redo it other than to update it, but they don't say it. So I think without clarity on that, or
Yeah.
to assume that that's correct could be a problem.
Mhm.
If
Mhm.
it's not. Yeah,
Well, it's gonna be obviously necessary in scoping out the work of feasibility studies so the selected vendor knows exactly what they're required to do. So, let's see, that's that. The next item, I know I sent out an email as well with some more detail on this one, but I think you probably remember hearing about this going back a ways when we had a couple of representatives from the city here in this room presenting. I think that was about 2 years ago. This project's been on the drawing board in Newburyport for at least a couple of years. But with the ad hoc committee, the city council committee on water, this has gained a much higher profile and has seemed to gain some real momentum in the last couple of months. And so I've had a couple of meetings with staff in the last 2 to 3 weeks to share everything I know with the key staff. That's obviously going to include water, conservation, DPW and health. And so, yeah, I wanted to, kind of let you know that's moving. It's at the conceptual design phase. And the city is looking to arrive at a decision as to what configuration of dam elevation change they'd like to pursue. And our primary interest is obviously to ensure that nothing they do harms our interests. And that's something I'm very confident, not only that they don't want to harm our interests, but also that they would never be allowed to through the permitting process. That's a fair bet. Is there a configuration of this that can help our interests? There probably is. And so that's something that we want to fully explore. So we're working to schedule a meeting either next week or the week after. Given the number of schedules involved, it's probably going to be the week after. But that'll involve the city kind of engineer, water staff, the project manager, as well as on our side, the water superintendent, the conservation agent. We're going to include the Concom chair because obviously she's going to have a much better finger on the pulse of what she thinks the commission will be looking at in terms of permitting. And we've also reached out to Greenbelt. I spoke with their land stewardship manager earlier this week, and they'll be part of that meeting as well. It does, interestingly, the configuration of the dam that would extend to the west. We do a reshare with the website page just so people who are remote can see what I'm talking about. So if it was to extend, roughly along here toward the site driveway, that's something that city engineers expressed significant concerns about the permitting road of a proposal like that. And that's where kind of working together is going to be really important. But this land here, the R27-1, is owned by the town of West Newbury. I've asked the assessing department to do some research of who the custodial entity is. I think it's fair to assume it's the Water Commission, but I don't know that. And I met with Maureen this afternoon. She's been working on this for a couple of days and has not yet found, they didn't actually have good records. She said she went down in the basement. She's been looking through to see if she can find when was this transferred, but she found a document from 1971 that showed as of that point, this parcel here was still under the ownership of Society of St. John. So sometime between 1971 and the present, it was transferred to the town. It's a material interest to us. Who was the custodial entity? I think it's very probably the Water Commission, but we want to find exactly what the records show, because that entity is absolutely going to be you know, a decision maker in terms of how this might go, so. There's a lot to this, and it's something we're putting in some significant time on at this point.
And do you feel like West Newbury has a seat at the table for this, or?
At this point, I definitely do. There was, I think I might have alluded to this in a prior conversation or, maybe one of the emails I sent, but there was a significant misunderstanding on the city's part on this, because there had been a meeting back in the fall of 2023 over at their office that myself, Mark Marlowe, and Michelle Green had attended. And at that meeting, Michelle had, and they had laid out these two potential options, one of basically increasing the elevation down around the edge of the reservoir, and the other with more of something extending to the west. And Michelle had expressed she felt this option would be a significant hurdle from a environmental permitting, and I'm sure she's correct. But that was an opinion she expressed. That was not in any way the town of West Newbury's position on this matter. And I suspect that the town's interests would be better served by something that extends the protection of the elevated dam to include the well field in what is protected, rather than something that went this way, which would leave the well field exposed if there was the kind of event that they're concerned about. So when John Eric had presented this at the ad hoc meeting back in September, he only showed this option. And I was very surprised, so I approached him after the meeting and I said, I thought you were looking at both options. And he, turns out he took Michelle's comment as an indicator that we didn't want that. And so I said, John Eric, that's not true.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, Michelle's great, she's an employee, she's not, you know, the Concom, and she's certainly not the Water Commission or the Select Board. And this project has never been formally brought before any of these bodies. So anyhow, and then I wrote that up in an email to him just to make it crystal clear that the town has not ever formally weighed in on this, and that I think when it comes to trying to get some direction from Concom as to whether they'd be open to that kind of thing, that's going to be a difficult ask, because they're not probably going to be comfortable providing too much advice until there's something formal in front of them. With all the engineering and, you know, what would the replication be and so forth. So I've really cautioned him. He's referred in some emails to wanting to arrive at a decision. I've really cautioned him. That's not something that you can just sit around the table in a daytime meeting and make a decision. That's not how our government's structured. It's so much more, it's gonna take time. So I think he's got that point, but he had sent me the meeting minutes from that meeting that showed her comment. And I remember the meeting, I remember being there. But he also more recently has sent me 3 sets of meeting minutes where they've met with their design engineer, Ty and Bond. Including one of those meetings included DEP. We were not aware of any of those meetings. We weren't part of any of those meetings. So getting back to your question, I think at this point, we're at the table, but it turns out that for the last 2 years, we really have not been at the table. So that's,
Yeah.
but you know, that they are at the concept planning stage, or they're not beyond that. So.
Right.
So I'll keep you posted as I get more information about that. Next item, we have a meeting tomorrow with GNAP. They're coming here to the office. And gonna meet with myself, Brian, Caitlin, and Jonathan Seymour and Max. We're working to get we have all of the FY 27 page school capital projects, those Band-Aid items are already built into ClearGov and have been since October. But we want to get to where the capital program is 100% synchronized with the conditions assessment. And that's going to mean including all of the projects, including those things that might be on a 10 or 20-year time horizon and realistically would probably not get done. But I want to make sure that the capital program is fully reflective of the future costs if we were to stay in that building for the long term. And there's a lot of technical information in the conditions assessment, so we're gonna benefit from E&F's help to translate what's in their report into the discrete project descriptions within the ClearGov system. So we have a meeting with them tomorrow, and that's all part of the broader effort to update the capital program. We've got a meeting with the finance committee on the 17th in the evening for them to review the complete capital program. So right now I have different departments and the Park and Rec Commission as well reviewing their updates that they have provided to my office this fall. We built them all in, but I recirculated everything just to make sure everybody gets one more look at it before it goes to the FinCom, just to make sure it's fully reconciled with the latest information. A couple of construction updates, the pickleball courts, which I spoke with the foreman earlier today from Heimlich, the contractor. They're prepping the base with the gravel and grading it for the base paving. They're compacting the gravel. They are still aiming to get the paving done this month. Obviously, they're going to need a warmer day, which said if there's a day that's in the mid-30s, that's going to be fine, especially because it's the base course of paving. So weather permitting, we are still on track to get the base course paving done this season. The Page Crossing, the work that's been done recently was to extend the gravel, the walkway to meet the plan with regard to the equestrian RRFB. They added some more gravel around the guardrail, and they put in the posts for the RRFBs. And then yesterday afternoon, we heard from Commonwealth Construction that they expect to be out there soon with the installation of the signage. So, but there's still obviously work to be done with the RRFBs. So that continues to be a project we're managing. And then finally, the Middle Street Bridge, and I think later in the report, you have or in the packet, you have the closeout grant report with our MathWorks grant. So that includes kind of, the decking that's been set in the last couple of weeks. I did talk with our construction inspector yesterday, just continuing to push on when we're going to get information about the cost impact of the subsurface materials. They're expecting something from SNR by the end of this week, which they will then reconcile with their records, and they will give us advice on what they think is fair and reasonable for any change order associated with the unsuitable materials. So once I have anything specific on that, I'll let you know. Paving and line striping for the rear parking lot of Town Hall. As you know, there's a 15-foot right of way across the Town Hall property that goes back more than a century. And since we had the lot repaved, Butch and I thought it'd be a good opportunity to just delineate that in the field. Because that's over the years, there's been at times questions about where people can and can't park. So we felt there's nothing clearer than this striping. So I thought Butch did a nice job. I assumed he had brought in a line vendor, but he didn't. It turns out they borrowed the machine from payroll and they did it themselves. So I thought that was really nice. So that's what that picture is.
So I need that photo for next meeting with the discussion.
Yeah. Grant closeout reports, I included a couple of things in your packet. The MathWorks, I think you're fully briefed on. The other one, that was something went back to a earmark we got, or a community compact grant we got about 2.5 years ago. And the grant closeout report was a requirement of that. So I put some thought into that, and I hope that that's helpful to them. To be honest, I think if we at a staff level, we're not so stretched. I think we could have fully achieved what we sought to achieve with the very lean staffing we have, especially in the finance department. It just was a bridge too far. We put, untold hours, as you know, from last budget cycle, we had a completely redundant process between the ClearGov platform and our normal Excel-based budgeting. So we were doing both in parallel, and it just got to the point where, you know, we couldn't sustain doing both. So we are happy with the capital module, but the operational budgeting was an enormous impact, specifically on Jenny. She put in that just untold amount of hours on that. And then on the Affordable Housing Trust, they're meeting that's next Wednesday as well. Yeah, so just a brief update that we're continuing to correspond with Mass Housing Partnership, which had approved the forgivable loan or forgivable grant. So they have engineering firm under contract to do a feasibility study for the Mullen property. So they're working on a draft, and once that is in circulation, we'll make sure it gets to the board.
Can I add one thing on that?
Yeah, of course.
Somebody, I mentioned his name, sent us a letter.
Mhm.
I thought it was very nicely done. It's a concerned resident, worried about the Mullen property, rather than yelling and screaming, they just said, please keep us informed. I thought it was a great letter, and I appreciate those kind of correspondences more than some of the others we've seen lately.
So, several of the abutters came to the last Affordable Housing Trust meeting, so I collected email addresses and made a commitment to reach out to them and let them know, so. Yeah, I think early engagement with the abutters is key if this can go on.
So that's what I've got.
Okay. Right, action items. A is a request for determination of plow equipment and mower as surplus property. It's pretty straightforward, right?
Yep.
Motion?
So I'm just curious, do they sell these items or what happens with them?
So there's a policy on this, and it depends on the value. But they do sell it, and whether it's put out for bid or whether it's sold at the best I think it's actually in the select board policies. And yeah, disposal of surplus property policy. We adopted this back in 2019. So yeah, basically, department head submits a written recommendation that the item surplus, select board votes to designate the item surplus. If it's valued at less than 10,000, the procurement officer will advertise the items for sale on the town website or in the local newspaper or by online auction as she or he deems in the best interest of the town. For surplus property valued at 10,000 or more, the CPO will dispose of the property in accordance with 30B by sealed bid, public auction, including online auction. And at its discretion, the town may either sell at less than fair market value or donate surplus property to a government entity or organization, tax exempt.
Okay. I assume this is less than 10?
I'm not in that line of work, but
Chris, what do you think?
Each individual piece would be, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I would give you 1,000 for you.
I was trying to think of somebody that we could donate to, but,
Skyrocketing gas bills, the new push to control costs has.
So who we make the motion to authorize to dispose of it, Butch? Or
we're just in,
you're just
Just
declaring a
saying surplus.
surplus, and then the policy would kick in terms of the CPO.
so I make a motion to declare the Tiger 13-foot bull mower and the 10-foot Flink reversible snowplow as surplus.
second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, item B is the request to endorse a Western and Sampson proposal to file an RDA with the Concom for new source water exploration at Riverbend. Because you said you had some questions on this?
Yeah, they're talking about an amendment and we talk about 45,700, but the next page, the numbers, I don't understand how.
So we have, a couple warrant articles that are funding these, so I think they're going back to the original. We've had original contract and then updates. So what,
But this proposal, tab 3, 4, and 5 is the amendment, number 1. You go to amendment number one, it says pending 50,850.
No, that's not.
So why is, I don't understand. How all the parts and pieces come together. I mean,
I would ignore that second table because it doesn't really reflect. Well, I mean, that's not part of it, that's their contract summary, it's not what we're voting on. Those are already authorized, expenses. But if you want me to have them revise the,
No, do you understand it? I don't.
yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
the numbers are clear to you and they're.
yeah, we've had 3 warrant articles. These reflect the first 2, we haven't tapped into the third one yet. So,
So 45.7, we have the funds available for that.
So I mean, the thing I wanted to discuss is, are we still on board with this approach? I mean, this property, it's not a conservation restriction, but it's, under the Conservation Commission's authority, and so the process would be the same. If it did turn out to be a viable well site, we're looking at, offering up a parcel of similar value to replace this in terms of conservation. It's also some concerns about, sea level rise. It's a little bit higher than the prior parcel they were looking at, but, so just looking for your feedback, whether you still think we wanna, this was rated number 10 out of the 12 sites.
Right, we don't have a lot of other.
No, we don't,
options.
but that doesn't mean we have to evaluate one, right?
Right, and so then I'm gonna go to the, further in the packet, the Board of Water Commissioners
Mhm,
gave their suggestions for the IMA, which we'll be talking about later.
mhm.
One of them was to negotiate with Newbury that we should be able to drill in the watershed if it doesn't directly impact it, which is a really valid point.
Yeah, I suggested it too. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
oh, and I thought that was a great idea, so kudos to you.
well,
But so then, if that option becomes available in the near future, I would rather reserve this funding
for that,
for those, because there are much better opportunities for that. So. I will follow your lead on whatever you think is the most.
yeah, I just, I've been kind of having second thoughts on this. The issue with the timing is that if we're gonna do this under an RDA, it has to be done in the grants first.
My question would be, so you gotta give them a comparable parcel. What is that based on? Is it based on the value of that land now? Or is it based on the fine water everybody thinks in?
No, comparable will be in terms of resource value as a conservation parcel, not as a developable.
So how do you, I don't even know how.
Yeah, I don't,
Or-
it's a long process, you would have to apply, you probably have to do a NEPA review, I don't know.
I think under the Article 97, that's similar to the conversation we had with the Ash Street parcel. I think that's where you're getting the 4 separate appraisals.
Yeah.
And it's for conservation value, not financial appraisals.
Mhm. They have offered to come in and talk to us, I don't feel like. This is not an engineering question, it's kind of a policy question for us, whether we want to pursue this or,
I guess I'd rather reserve the funds. And if Newburyport in the near future could accommodate,
mhm,
I think it's a pretty simple request. I mean, we've talked parcels, I mean, even Dunn was one. But everybody saw it's in their watershed. Well, it's 2 miles away, so that really doesn't impact their water, so. If they at some point are agreeable to that, I think the funds would be much better used
mhm.
on a higher. This is a low possibility, low probability.
Yeah, and there are, I mean, as we've said, it's an old shooting site, so we don't know what the soil quality is. Oh, thanks, Agnes. Yeah, so this is their Weston and Sampson's original study. So this is number 10, number 1. the
Number
one
one
that-
is right next to 10. Number one didn't pan out.
Right, so that's a little, leery. Number 8 is actually really viable, but that's on Society of St. John parcel, and that is, within the Newburyport Northfield. I mean, watershed.
Yeah.
And then, can you scroll down, Agnes? There's a couple other ones that are. Number 4 is another one.
But a significant part of the town was ruled out
Yeah, more than half were ruled out because it was in
in the
the.
watershed, so I think if we could overcome that hurdle, we have much better opportunities.
So you'd rather put our efforts to see.
Well, you don't seem too excited about it, and I don't either. I think there's a lot of. Be very wishful thinking to think this one will pan out. If number one did, I don't see how this would.
Well, I think I think this is comparable to the other side that we tried to negotiate. You know, being that close to the
Okay,
river, it's likely that it's a good site, but again, you know, treatment, we won't know until it's been operating for 6 months, whether we need solids treatment, you know. So,
we go and pass on it, if that's.
yeah, that, my only concern with that is I think any agreement about drilling within your watershed is gonna be tied to all the other terms of the IMA that, that's not gonna happen quickly. So this means we're probably taking a year off and,
Better than throwing 50 grand out the
Yeah.
window.
agreed. Do you know about the sunset dates on these items? Does it say on the budget?
Let's see. Do you have the town accounts report?
I do, I'm
Yeah.
not sure where it says what the.
It should be within the title of the account.
So it says STM 42924.
Yeah, you could get an extension, right?
Oh, that's true.
Well, that's when it was voted, so where I would look would be in the town clerk's report.
Mhm. So it's the 2024 spring town meeting,
So what was that, the annual or the special?
special, sorry,
And what was the article number?
Article 3. No, that's not right. Says 83, 42924. I think that's 2025.
I was just say.
Oh,
I think
I'm
it's
sorry.
45.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah. Sunset, FY 26.
Okay.
I
Well,
mean, with the hurdles there, you know, possible contamination, tide rise,
mhm,
and having to accommodate the Concom and replacing the land. I think it's a really long shot
mhm. Okay,
to waste taxpayers' money unless something's a good.
yeah, so I guess we'd have need to have another discussion whether we wanna just close this article out or, try to extend it. Any thoughts on this?
I would suggest putting it on as a placeholder for this spring to look at extending the sunset.
Okay.
But it's certainly gonna be, it's gonna be a lot of interest in
Mhm.
whether you wanna continue on this path.
Yeah, definitely. Is there any way to decouple this question from the IMA, or do you feel like that needs to be?
It seems to me that there's enough that both the city and the town have to gain or to lose, that there's gonna be a natural tendency to tie things, because I think it'd be very difficult for the city to agree to something that would arguably give up rights they have without some exchange.
Mhm.
Some of the gap is gonna be in the, tied into an IMA.
And it's look, that site, is that on the downstream side of the reservoir of the dam, I mean?
This one here, the site 10 is the one that the proposal is for.
Right, but that's still downstream of the dam and Molten Street and everything else, so I don't know.
No, this is on the Merrimack.
Oh, that, right, but it's below their dam, so it may not be part of what they're
Oh,
working.
this is not part of the watershed.
We're talking about.
Yeah, there's a broader discussion that the board is having as to whether, because some of the potentially higher probability
Yes.
sites are within the
Yeah,
watershed.
no, right, up there they are, I thought you were talking about that one, because it was circled and I was.
Oh, yeah, no, the proposal before them is for the site 10, which is the Concom, the river bends, and it's outside the watershed.
Okay,
I would try and decouple it. I would suggest a
who
letter.
would we even ask? Is this a city engineer?
I would probably start there. He's not got any decision-making authority, but certainly he's been helpful as he'll share what he knows. Ultimately, it would be something that the mayor and council would need to agree to.
Okay,
I don't really know if they don't have any intent to exercise those rights. Maybe they would be willing to give that up.
I mean, really, what do they care if we were to drill
Exactly.
on, I'll say Dunn property, because I know that had been part of the conversation previously.
Yeah.
That doesn't impact them at all legitimately. potentially helps them if we're getting more of our own water, we're less dependent on them. So
Exactly, yeah.
I would rather see it decoupled than as the pond getting used on the IMA.
Mhm.
So did you say that Connie Preston is off the council now?
Yeah, her term is ending at the end of the month.
I was thinking that might be, you know, the ad hoc committee might be a good place to kind of hold this.
She does anticipate that the new council will establish a new ad hoc committee,
Okay,
and Councillor Khan is the word on the street is she'll probably be chair, but that's
okay,
a ways away. I do think they would establish in January, because there's a lot of momentum with that.
We could even do it based on parcel specific too. I mean, if,
Mhm.
you know, they think we're drilling right next to their reservoir, that would be problematic, I would understand, but if you're a mile and a half away. And we gotta identify 3 or 4 parcels that way, it might,
so maybe we should circle back to Weston and Sampson and
And
say,
have them.
identify which.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah, okay, all right, I'll do that, that's good. Okay. Item C is a request to review and adopt the chief procurement officer contract signing authority policy.
So this had been before you at your last meeting, and I think there were 1 or 2 clarifications we were looking for. And I sent this back through Tom McEnany at KP, so that what you have is what he has recommended. There may end up being further refinements in the future, but I would like to get something adopted, and then we can refine it as needed.
I think well, what we were talking about is making sure that any body that doesn't fall under this is identified. But you're saying we could do that after as an amendment.
Well, I think
Do you think it's just the trust, the Affordable Housing Trust and the?
no, I think so.
Okay. Right.
But I did send a note over to Tom earlier today,
Yeah.
and you know, if we find out there's others, we would want to amend that.
Mhm. Okay. What do you think, Chris? Comments?
I have no problem with this, seems pretty straightforward.
I think it was good to have the indirect cost statement in there.
Mhm.
Okay. I'll make a motion.
I can get the motion right. Is it just to adopt this as a policy for the select board?
Yeah.
Make a motion to adopt the financial policies as presented as a select board policy.
Is it actually select board policy?
So actually, I was gonna make that clarification. It's the financial policies are all listed under the a separate section of the bylaws and policies on the town website, and so it would be listed under as a standalone financial policy.
And does it need town meeting vote then?
No, gosh,
Okay.
no, and honestly, to be very honest, it actually doesn't need select board vote.
Mhm.
I have brought every financial policy to the select board over the years out of an abundance of transparency,
Mhm.
but it's actually under the statute, I can promulgate financial policies just like prior finance directors have before me for many, many years. I haven't done that. I've brought them all to the board. I think that's a fine thing to do.
Okay. So do you wanna modify your motion or just omit the select board?
Well, make the select board, I mean, yes, that's easy.
All right, is that acceptable, Amanda? Okay, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Item D is a request to review and adopt amendments to capital planning financial policy. So these just reflect the changes that were made because the CIC was.
Correct, and this is substantially identical to what was before you in the couple of earlier this fall prior to town meeting. The one change that I made since then was the this evaluation of capital projects. In the draft that had been before you earlier in the fall, this was unamended from the current adopted policy, which was adopted back in December 2018. I went through this relative to the litmus test, which I also included in your packet, and tried to make sure that as amended, it's fully reflective of the values and the litmus test.
But that's not part of the policy, the last ones.
No, the litmus test isn't, but I included it for
No, I
reference, so,
appreciate that.
yeah, just to make sure that nothing, kind of got overlooked.
Any questions, Chris?
Yeah, we keep talking about the town work plan.
Mhm.
There's no reference to that in here. Is it on the town work plan kind of thing? I know it's a little
Which to
different.
update the capital policy.
When you're endorsing something for the capital planning, is it on the work plan?
Oh, yeah, no, that's,
It's not why we even there. Right? I mean, I know.
yeah,
You could say it's under, number 7, plans, goals, objectives, and policy of the town, but. Just where I think we're trying to make that work plan the, tool that directs how we do things.
I guess my only kind of counterpoint to that is that, not all capital projects are gonna be things that are kind of under the select board's oversight or even necessarily have not, a major impact on staff time outside of the department doing that, so I'm
But
thinking.
a lot too, though, so I just, there
A
should,
lot too.
maybe just some reference to the town,
Yeah,
work plan there, be cognizant of it or something.
Could you just say including the most recently adopted town work plan, or something like that?
to add that to item 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was, yeah, I just think that be putting that in the forefront more frequently and making people aware of it before they.
I was
Yeah.
thinking the same thing about the CPC project review process, because again, that's something that anybody could put a proposal in and then gets approved at town meeting, you have to do it. So I think a fair question in the application is this on town work? Yes.
Almost anything if we're gonna start investing time and money.
Okay, anything else on this, Chris?
Nope.
Motion,
Make a motion, we got the capital planning. Financial policy.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Item E is to review and endorse the FY 27 budget policy here. So, I guess my first question was on the school stabilization. Now, can you explain your comment here?
Yes. Yeah, so there's about 287,000 remaining. So in the FY 26 budget, there had been a draw of 200,000 to offset the tax rate. So the question is whether, and you don't certainly need to decide this tonight, but I think it's worth starting a conversation, is as you look to the spring town meeting, do you anticipate recommending a draw, which would be consistent with the long time policy of drawing down that balance to offset the impact of the middle high school? If you did so at the same level as FY 26 of 200,000, that would obviously leave, very little left for the subsequent year. And whatever year you stop drawing from that, that's obviously gonna be a direct impact on people's taxes. So my question was whether you want to look to keep that the same or to continue to kind of wean down and maybe look at the 287 to like half and then half.
Maybe in proportion, they stair step it too.
Yeah, there's enough, there's any number of ways you could do it, so.
Are we contributing to that fund too? Because we were talking about
Well,
having.
that's my concern,
So you
so,
got money going in, money coming out, it's like, which pocket did it come from? So.
Right, that's exactly what was proposed last spring. The reason being, as you know, is just item 4 here to start to capitalize for the future school expenses.
It adds clarity to the voters so they can see what the plan is, I understand.
Right, yeah,
So how much did we put in, do you recall?
200,000.
Put in 200, take out 200.
Yeah. But the difference being the 200 that was a draw comes out of the current year tax bill, meaning reduces people's taxes. The 200 that was put in was transferred from a different, from like free cash, so that didn't affect people's.
okay, so I mean, I agree, I think a stair step.
So, and then the other thing that I just mentioned in the comment, I worked with Jenny on this and she pointed out that we do have some debt service that's gonna be expiring in the next 3 fiscal years. So her thought was.
Tied in with that as a step down.
Exactly, to account for the fact that we're gonna have a natural reduction in our school assessment. As the debt service on the green repairs and the QECB projects kind of fall off the books. Over the next 3 fiscal
Could
years.
Jenny work up a plan that sort of correlates the two for us so that
Yep,
they work in sync?
yep, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Are you okay with number 7, Trace?
Yeah, I just made a notice it'd be very useful.
Yeah.
It will, yeah, and I have been working with Jenny on that, and it's something that we both very much wanna get done, and we've got. Tremendous amount of time into it, it's just not quite there yet, but we both think that. Barring, I mean, it's gonna be tough, but we're close, it's just, it is a lot of work.
So number 10. Oh, I guess this is not the point for us to have a conversation about whether we're gonna have step increases or not. But I just highlighted it. At what point do we talk about that? Part of the budgeting, right?
Well, we're correct, yeah, I mean, this language was put in for the first time in the budget policy direction, I think for FY 23, because at that time we were working on the wage and classification study. So the same language was kept in for the subsequent couple of years. And I think if you were to decide tonight or whenever you adopt this, that you don't want to consider any performance-based step increases, I think it would be good to know that, because I can communicate that around. If you want to keep the door open to that, then I think this language is good language, because it says it would only be considered in the context of a consistent townwide policy for evaluations.
So, I mean, having done it once and then last year it was just cost of living, do you have any sense from staff? How they feel about that? I mean,
Not really, I mean, I think that the going to the greater than the 2% COLA was definitely, I think, appreciated, although 3% is still not like
right,
that great, but it is better than 2. Personally, I felt good about what was done last year of making it a townwide, somewhat greater than the historical COLA. But I think keeping that option on the table is not a bad idea.
yeah. It's just, it's nice to recognize or incentivize employees that are performing, above expectations. What do you think?
It gets kind of sticky, that's
Yeah.
the sort of thought, it's,
Yeah.
hopefully they're doing their job anyways, and I know you say incentivized, but there should be the pay that they have accepted for doing their job properly, so. I kind of like the across the board, because it's equitable to everybody.
Yeah.
Because somebody can get shut out.
Well, everybody would tell you the cost of living. But
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, why don't we decide that when Ross is here, and just leave it like that for now? Does that sound okay, Chris?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right,
I mean, so what you're thinking is previous, was it 2%, and then there was a lump sum that was distributed based on merit elsewhere?
maybe we alternate, maybe not.
Yeah, the alternate felt good, so
Yeah.
everybody got to catch up last year and.
Let's see. I question number 11 on the DPW reorganization. Do you feel like we still need that in here? Or is their budgeting completely separated now?
It's not completely separated.
Okay.
Yeah, there's still some, and now there's some. Well, let me be clear. So there's a breakdown of certain budget lines that doesn't appear in the approval budget, but that we did put in place for the current year. So I'll give a good example. There's a single DPW expense line, or travel training is a great example, because obviously between highway facilities and business manager, they all have continuing education requirements and travel training and conferences and things. So it's a single line in the budget, but going into the last budget season, I worked with Butch and Brian and Caitlin and Jenny, and we allocated that appropriately, so there would be the sufficient funding for each of them. We didn't want a dynamic where one person going to a training undercut a different person's ability to go to a separate training. So we did separate it out. It's not reflected in the budget that goes to town meeting. Part of the reason being the DPW budget already has far more lines in it than any other department. And so breaking that down even further gets to be, there's an administrative component of that, and also it undermines sometimes when you're doing year-on-year reporting on budget trends. Every time you change the chart of accounts, it makes it more difficult to do that, illustrating over time how expenses have changed. So we ended up, travel and training was one kept as a single line, but there is a breakdown that we all agreed to in the budget process of. So it is reflected in our accounting.
Mhm.
It's not fully reflected in the budget as presented. So I'm fine with how we did it in the current year, and I think it's worked well. So I think if you are fine with how, unless you're looking from, more.
No, I'm looking for
yeah.
whatever works for.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cleaner right now, so I think you could strike number 11.
You wanna do that, Chris?
Fine by me.
Okay. I had a question on number 12 and the legal expenses.
Mhm.
I know it says not necessarily limited to, but I wonder if we should include the Board of Library Trustees as one of the entities that might need to pay for the legal. What do you think? I mean, is there any up or down with listing sources specifically?
I think one concern I have, I mean, that, this question had come up a couple of years ago where there was a question as to whether a separate elected board could get its own legal counsel. And we, as you know, we reviewed that with town council, and the answer was no. The answer is that the town of West Newbury is a single corporate entity with a single legal counsel, and that counsel is appointed by and then reports to ultimately the select board. So I think if as opposed to something like, the PEG funds where it's clearly authorized for like renegotiating that is clearly eligible. I think if, let's say the library trustees was paying a legal bill, I feel like they might reasonably say, well, hey, look, if we're paying the bill, we're, well, why can't we go engage our own counsel? I feel like it could muddy the water. I think it's part of the town's financial responsibility to address legal questions. If legal questions are presented that are not, let's say a board has a legal question and my office or the select board doesn't feel that's really an open question, that, that can create,
So this, I guess the distinction is these are funds rather than, entities.
yeah, these are all separate funds,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay, all right, that makes sense to me. Those are the only questions I had. Chris, did you have anything else?
Number 16, I just kind of got a chuckle on it, looking at the fee schedule again, spring town meeting.
Hmm.
We'll have to have a little bit more,
Wait, 15 or 6, the
Six-
revised
16, yeah.
Okay,
I think we'll have to do a better presentation in advance.
Yeah.
Is all.
okay, good. So, do we want to just hold off on approving this till we get input from Ross about the,
Well, Jenny, she can give us a
Oh,
proposal, how to
alright.
step down
Yeah.
the stabilization.
do you want to actually have that in the policy or just?
I don't think you wouldn't have the specific amount in there,
Yeah.
Based on a suggestion by the town accountant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would like to, if you're comfortable voting it tonight, normally I get the budget packet out in, no later than mid-December. So
Oh,
we're
okay.
already at December 4th, I would like to get
All right, I guess
voted.
we're preserving the option on staff increases, so that's fine.
Yep.
So are you looking for us to say on comment 4?
No,
Just,
no, I just didn't want to put in, so right now, the way it reads, we're supposed to recommend town meeting, that the town meeting vote to transfer from available funds an amount to cover
Okay,
us.
no. okay,
Or then item 3, yeah, to recommend to continue to draw down the balance based on a multi-year plan to mitigate the taxpayer impact of the middle high school. So
That's
it's
fine.
general language.
And just say based on a schedule to be presented by the town council.
Sure, yeah. Good,
To align with expiring debt.
good.
Motion?
Yes.
Make a motion to endorse the select board fiscal year 27 budget policy direction with amendments as we just specified.
Second. Further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. This item is to talk about the status of immediate and near-term initiatives in the town of plan. So if we wanna delay some of these from the timeframes that we originally assigned them. I guess my intent for putting this in here is I feel like there's just too much. I think we read too much, you know. And we need to back it off for the good of our employees. And in order to get stuff done that's already been in progress and it is being impacted. So I don't know how you wanna do this, Chris. Did you go through and check ones that you thought we could delay? Or-
It's, yeah, a lot of squishy because I don't have enough, you know.
One thing, if I could, sorry to interrupt, I just put this together this afternoon, so. So I will never get it out ahead of time, but I took you could pass this that thing. So I took the items in the work plan and I, used my, little color coding of whether things are either complete, shaded in green, in progress, shaded in yellow, or, if they're shaded in light pink, it means they're not underway in a meaningful way. So, and I aggregated them all into a single, table, so the immediate and the short term and the FY 27 plus are all, but they're sorted, as you can see, the first,
Mhm.
they're organized in that way. So this was intended kind of, so you can ask me questions if you want, of like, okay, you shaded this yellow, like, where exactly are we with this? But I wanted to share this around just to let you know, kind of, as of now, a lot of the things that were identified are in progress, but one thing Wendy and I have talked about is, sometimes you get something done and it just brings it to the next stage. So it's not actually done. It's, even though you've done what was on the list, it's now just brought you to the next stage of that particular project, so.
I mean, I think the library feasibility study is a good example of that. We
Exactly.
did the working group, now we have to do the feasibility study procurement.
Right.
So Chris, what do you think makes the most sense in terms of, I mean, my intent is to delay some of these, so. Do you wanna go through each one, or do you have ones that,
Some of mine, I think we need to revisit the EV charging station rates. Even address that, it takes more time than.
Well, that's probably gonna be done, but so I've been working with the energy committee, they're reviewing that, they've been doing research, they've had it on their agendas, and they actually will have a recommendation for your next meeting on the 18th, so. I don't know if it's gonna be to recommend a change or to keep them the same.
See, it's such a non-critical issue to me.
It's a not critical issue, but it was also a nice one because I could simply delegate it and they are doing the research, and it's been a not a big lift at all. Because they're much more knowledgeable in that than I am or anyone on staff is, so.
let's just start at the top, what about regionalization? I mean, I feel like we don't have anything concrete.
No, that's a broad brush.
Yeah, so we could delay that.
Sort of just keep it in your mind, so I would not have a problem.
Alright. Clear gov and
One exception when we
what's
get,
that?
when we get to the water, I'm gonna talk about it specific to water at that time. I don't know,
Which one you mean?
regionalization.
Oh, right, okay.
And I don't wanna say just because we put regionalization issues on the back burner, you can't discuss it on top of specific issues.
Right. Angus, do you have a way to shade that to indicate that water, that this does not include water that we're delaying?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've got elsewhere, coming up with a sustainable plan for, water, financial plan. I think that's under baseline, but,
Okay. On the ClearGov. You're continuing with both of these?
so the conversions of the capital program is really, it's really complete. It's just, as I mentioned earlier tonight, it's, the sections are currently under final review by the departments, but that's gonna be presented to the FinCom at their December 17th meeting, so that's, is gonna be shaded green this month. I never shade it green until it's like actually done, so even if it's like 95%, so that one's gonna be done. I think the capital budget tracking, Max has put in a fair amount of time learning that. He and I have corresponded a lot. We have not had the time to work together on it. There's just not the time. I have a feeling that is probably not going to come together, and honestly, even if it did, I feel like it could use, we put a lot of staff time into building out project profiles on the web, and I just wondered if people actually even like go and view that, and then if you do it, and then if you don't keep it totally current, that can almost be worse, because that's like, well, you haven't updated 2 months, it's like, well.
So is that one delayed then?
I honestly,
Or
I
is
think
it
that's
on the-
probably gonna go away,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
So that's when we pay contractual obligation for.
Yeah, it's one module of the overall software package, so it's not a big budget item, but it's something that I think it's reasonable to just drag it.
Okay, the next one, the legal status of the riding and driving club, that's done, right? I mean,
Well,
we
I
evaluated.
mean, we got the legal
Right,
opinion,
that'll be on our agenda for next time.
and it'll
so,
probably consume time,
Well.
because it's a license agreement.
Yeah.
That you'll either need to modify or other. Right? I mean, it's gonna take time.
I don't know
All right,
the whole
let's,
story, so I can't.
all right,
tell
so
you.
why don't we hold off on this one until the next meeting when we discuss it, we get a better sense of. Harbor bylaw regulations, you said that can be delayed, right? Ann?
In my opinion, it can. The Harbor Committee is meeting next Tuesday. This will be their first meeting since last spring. And I think if this is something the board wanted to advance, you could either, if it's something you wanted to do yourselves or wanted my office to do, I think it should be delayed. If it's something that, if you had clarity as to how you might want to see that change, and I don't know if the Harbor Committee would be willing or have the
Yeah, we have
capacity
other
to do
things to
that.
worry about.
Yeah. To me, it's nowhere near a front burner
Yeah,
issue.
okay, good. What about the 2001 committee handbook?
That's coming along nicely. Amanda and Max have been doing some nice work on that, and I think it's gonna be worth the effort.
Okay,
So I, just there's a lot that's changed with the open meeting law. There's some logistical things like the keyless entry that we feel like this is a good opportunity to just have everything in one place. So, I mean, I know there's not like a hard deadline of December 31st. I know you kind of have a lot.
Yeah, I don't think it's near like December.
Yeah, no, I don't, it's not gonna be done this month, but I think it,
but it's still worth putting time in on the near term.
Yes,
Okay.
but I think with everything else compounding, that it would take a little bit more time than December.
Okay,
oh yeah, it definitely.
about special event permits.
I would like to see the board, ideally at the next meeting, provide some direction as to the new application forms, because that's another one where I think a lot of good work was done. With the bylaw not having passed, anything to do with any kind of fee or fine will come out, but other than that, I think the form is in great shape. You guys have done a lot of work on it, and I think it's gonna be a lot clearer to the applicants, and I think it's designed to really anticipate the types of questions that the board members ask, so
Okay.
I'd like to get that new form endorsed ideally at the next meeting.
It was already.
Uh,
They voted at the public meeting like a few months ago.
I don't think we voted because Chris wasn't here, it was just Ross.
yeah, it's September 4th, it was
Yeah.
before you.
Okay.
So we can look into that, but We don't wanna delay it, I guess that's the.
No, we don't delay it,
All right, so the EV charging, you said that's just about done.
just about done, yeah.
So pickleball courts, that's in progress,
Yeah.
that's really not a huge step.
Yeah, no, at this point, Butch has got that under control, there's not a lot that does.
All right, what about soldiers and sailors? To me, that's a delay.
That's what I had.
Yeah, okay. Townwide evaluation of water potential. I guess it looks like we're delaying. Yeah.
Delayed it or not, if we ask Weston and Sampson,
Oh. But it's not like,
not
to be
every,
done by the end of December.
yeah, that's not that.
Where do we stand with the MIVA, the bus locations? Is that ongoing or is that a big demand?
It's, there's no marked stops. Butch had identified a couple of locations that meet the physical criteria. No decision's been made on where to put the signs. I think it would be helpful to understand from the board, do you want to see signs? Cause if so, we have locations that Butch has identified, these sports require, they would work. But
Do you mean, do we wanna see the physical sign?
no, do you wanna have signs there?
At the bus stops?
Correct.
I thought they were gonna put them on, when I met with Nina, and I put the stickers on,
Mhm.
and then they were gonna come out and put them. They
Yeah,
were just waiting
right,
to do that.
right.
I mean, I think there should be signage. so people know.
Yeah.
I thought that was part of the whole plan.
Yeah.
We represented.
Good,
it.
okay, all right.
So that one that's in progress.
Yeah, that's been in progress, yeah.
All right, what about River Road?
Does that encompass the MVP grant?
Yes, that is the MVP grant.
So I'm gonna make a suggestion. Again, I think that's the one that's gonna kill the town as far as resources. I don't know what the status of putting it out to bid is. But I think it's probably a ways off still.
Well, it's the same as it was about 5 weeks ago, which is really within about 4 hours of work, like it's so close.
But then the
but
next
last 5 weeks, I
Part of
have
that puzzle is,
4 hours for it, it's.
once, even if you put it out, we still don't have anybody to oversee and administer it. I know you say you
Yeah,
do, but.
no, you're right, that's fair.
So what I'm gonna suggest is. We write to the granting authority at the state level and say. We've had a change in personnel, we don't have the current staff, we would anticipate to have this by spring or early summer. Can the grant be accommodated within that time frame?
So does that mean we would push the entire scope into 1 year instead of 2 years?
Or can you get more time? I don't. It's just
Yeah, we
sit
did
there.
ask about that, right, Angus, and she said, once it's underway, they would consider. it.
Right, that's what she said, yeah. Yeah, and I have been in touch with them as recently as the last, 2 days, 2 or 3 days, kept them apprised of the, but I haven't been able to commit to a specific.
If you were to get that put out to bid, if you were, these are yes, if you were to hire a contractor. I think then without appropriate staff, you're
Yeah.
just gonna fall apart. So I
Right,
think that's the
yeah,
one.
and it's really 4 different contracts is
Yeah.
one thing to keep in mind, it's 4 different vendors.
I think it has to be communicated with the granting authorities if we don't have the capacity to do it. Can they adjust and accommodate our schedule, just slide the whole thing? If they can, I think would be fools to take that on, because you're gonna disrupt so many other things.
So should that request come from the select board rather than Angus? I feel like it should.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you're in agreement with that, I don't know.
Yeah, I am. I mean, it's just a unfortunate timing. Sure.
Well, again, if we had the staff help, I would say that would be.
Even then, it would be a stretch. But
It would be,
bring
but it-
somebody new and try to. Okay, so. Maybe Angus, I can work with you on a letter.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I would suggest a phone call, with
Okay.
Michelle Rowden and just
Okay.
talking through, because I've been keeping her fully apprised and,
Okay.
you know, she's worked in town hall, she understands the kinds of, time pressures that we're under.
Okay. The dock at Mill Pond, I feel like that can be delayed. I mean, there's permitting involved with that.
Now, it's a physical component still down on the ground there,
Yeah, but that's.
just pick it up and
It's
move
gotta
away.
be repurposed, yeah. What's the follow-up of delaying that? I mean, it doesn't seem urgent to me. The formal policy for roadway acceptance, we're there, right?
I crossed that off, we really don't need that,
Okay.
yeah. I think the checklist that Jen, Gary and I put together back in the late summer, early fall
Yeah.
has been very effective.
What
It's all
about,
governed by state law anyway.
what about the invasive species management? Can that be delayed?
It doesn't need to be because we have the funding, there's a long time, there's a long sunset on it. As I think, I did reach out to the vendor, in the last, 3 or 4 weeks to get a quote to deal with the knotweed at the Page crossing. And he did give me a ballpark quote, and we do want to get that under contract. So at this point, now that the funding's appropriated, some amount of that is really an operational resource available to Butch to be able to deploy, the herbicide applicator when needed.
Mhm.
The bigger policy question of, for instance, specific land management plans for different town-owned parcels. That's something that I think is not gonna be realistic to take on, certainly not till, I would say, at least till after budget season.
Okay.
Especially where we have a conservation agent who's very new. He has a lot of good experience in invasives, but,
Okay, so that will be pushed out to long term, that aspect of the contract,
yeah, I
which
think
is
that's fair.
after.
Yeah,
What about the fire department?
I did meet with Dwyer on that, and he is intending to post a meeting of the fire engineers for next week, I believe. So,
And he has availability, I don't think they picked a day yet.
okay, yeah, so he's that's very much on his radar to get that started, and that he is gonna come back to the select board with some direction on that.
Okay, I mean, that's one that I can see taking up a lot of,
Yeah,
Or
I think that's
time.
gonna be a significant,
and this is not grant funded, right, so it could be delayed.
correct, yeah.
What do you think about this, Chris?
I don't know enough about it, I know it's
It's,
important.
it's to evaluate the structure, whether we're gonna stay on call or hire people.
Again,
It also includes an asset review of like the vehicles and stations.
when you say delayed, how long, going to the near term instead?
I think it should go into the long term, which is FY 27 and beyond. I mean, these kinds of studies are really time intensive, they take a lot of engagement and,
Super, I don't know enough about it, so I'll
Yeah.
defer with you. Okay.
okay. Do we have the stomach to keep going on this?
Yeah.
All right,
Another 16 pages.
no, it's just one more page. The multi-year budget forecasting tool, Angus, you said.
Yeah, we're-
Keep that on,
Yeah, we're working with Jenny, I think we can get it done, barring, I mean, we've had a lot of craziness the last few weeks, and if that
Yeah.
continues, it really undercuts everything we're trying to do, but
Right.
hopefully that will. Yeah,
the facilities O&M list, where's that stand?
so I have a good draft, I'd like to, that Wayne had put together, so I would like to, I've gotta find some time to work with Brian and Caitlin on that.
Okay,
But we have a good draft, so I think where that was penciled in for the second half of this fiscal year, I think that's totally realistic.
okay, what about the accrual tracking?
That is probably not gonna happen, partly because there's so many staff with different hours and different multipliers of accruals. It ends up being a manual process, with Excel, and, the payroll software hasn't been able to account for that. The system we have now, I think, works well, where the finance department on a monthly basis circulates people's accrual balances.
Mhm.
And I have not had any complaints come in the last couple of years on that, so I think that works well. Personally, it kind of bugs me because I just think having it on the paycheck is great. That way you always know where you stand. But that has been something that has been difficult to do because there's so many different nuances in people's
Yeah,
accrual rates and hours per week and with the qualified part-time.
so would we eliminate that or just delay it?
Let me review that. I'll, because I'll have to just I'll ask Jenny and Caitlin, is that like ever gonna happen? Cause if not, we should just try.
Okay.
I've got it on my list since 2018, so.
What about the new resident welcome package? Can we delay that until after?
I don't think that's a big priority.
Never heard of that before.
Yeah, it's something that there was some work done before you started.
What about the retiree policy? I did get an email from,
Yeah, Caitlin did start on a draft of this.
okay,
Yeah, there's a draft. It's not ready for prime time, but it is something we're actively working on.
so that's in progress, I can see.
Yeah, that's in progress, yeah.
I added this MSBA statement of interest, I don't think that's on your list, I mean, we've committed to that, right? I don't know if you
Yeah.
formally voted,
Yeah,
But that's very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no question.
yeah, the decarbonization roadmap, I think we can delay that. What do you think?
I mean, in a sense, it's complete. The roadmap is complete. The follow-on steps were never committed to.
Okay.
The roadmap is complete, so that's why I shaded green on my list.
Parking barriers on Mill Pond, I think that's another one that can be delayed. What do you think, Chris?
Again, it's as simple as dropping granite blocks.
It's not, it's gotta be permitted.
Okay, simply.
I mean, right,
Yeah, it's gotta be permitted and
Drop granite blocks?
cause it's in the.
anything within the buffer zone. Yeah,
Actually,
it might be,
resources.
you know, there might be a negative determination of applicability, but I think what I'm hearing is that some people want blocks, some people want posts.
Alright, so let's.
So if you guys wanna weigh in on that, make that, it's ultimately gonna be your decision as the custodial entity. So if you wanna have that conversation, you can. But that's why it kind of stalled out.
Yeah, okay,
Let's leave it in stall mode.
alright, good. Potential land disposition for housing, I delayed that.
I mean, that's honestly a bit of a euphemism for like the Mullen property.
Yeah, I do think that should be delayed
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. I think that's fair.
What about these two zoning amendments? Those are in progress or?
I know, Sam is working on the parking table, and the table of allowable uses, I'm not sure, that's not a real impact on our office. I know that goes before the planning board, and they've gotta have a hearing.
Okay,
But I wouldn't see any reason to pump the brakes on
so
those,
just put it in progress.
yeah.
This is a duplicate, right? The multi-year budget forecasting tool. I think it
Yes,
should add it to
yes.
us under two different, categories. Ag committee's working on inventory town and fields. I don't think, that's not a big lift. Summer program handbook. Like I said, delay that.
Yeah, it's,
Okay.
you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, where this arose is, you know, my daughter's in different camps and. You know, you get really nice, like, as a parent, I appreciate it. We don't do anything like that.
Right.
You know, we've talked to Amy, she's open to it, but that's not gonna happen without. Me and my office really
Yeah, I think
putting it on. I think it would be nice, but, it's just gonna make something that's very good, better. It's not actually solving a problem, it's just trying to make something better.
All right, so we'll keep it on there, but just delay it till.
Sure.
Public access to Merrimack River, that's delayed, right? We're not gonna work on that next year. I mean, next, All right, so what about the library comprehensive plan? I mean, can we pull this off at the same time we're doing the vision process and?
So at this point, just to get you up to the current, so as of, I mean, this week and in fact, over today, Corinne and Caitlin Barker are actively working on the RFQ. It's all but ready to go.
Well, that's one part of it, but then
Yeah.
actually doing it.
Yep.
I think we were optimistic at putting this in the, near-term timeframe.
Mhm.
What do you think? Chris?
I guess it depends who's taking the lead on it. So we're library trustees. I know things weep into every other department. But I think there was an expectation that this was getting done.
Mhm.
I'd be hesitant to delay it, but you can convince me otherwise.
Well, I just think we need to be realistic. If we try to do 5 different, planning studies. They're gonna reflect the lack of, time people have to put into them. I'd rather do one and do it well than,
But don't you I anticipate the library trustees are gonna be taking the lead on it soon.
No, they're not. I mean, we talked about, a project team made up of Angus, member of the select board, and. Is that your understanding, Angus?
That has been the discussion. I would probably rather see it go forward with less direct involvement, just in the interest of kind of keeping it on track. That does create potential for misalignment,
Right.
because then, people do 8 months of work and and then it turns out that it's out of alignment with either the board or the FinCom's, kind of, stomach for a big capital project. I think that was the idea of having a kind of a coordinated approach with a number of different bodies involved, is to try to make sure that it's calibrated to what the town's openness is to a potentially costly project.
I'd be hesitant to delay it without sitting and talking with them. But I suspect when they might have a presentation as to how they think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I just feel like if you're doing a comp plan, that should be the first thing you do before you do all these individual planning things, right? So I think we're a little bit out of step here. All right, so let's talk about that more, maybe, get some details. All right. Anything else, Chris? Do we make a dent in this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
5, 6, 7. 15 to 16.
All right. Select board minutes.
Yeah, pre-read them and then I think Max sends it to you for approval.
Yeah, I had a couple questions on E. See, town manager updates, E, it looks like there's two ones that got pushed together. You see that? It says C exhibit BD. And then like execution of contract, I think that should be a separate,
Yeah, something got off in his formatting.
Yeah. you see that, Agnes? Or Amanda, I don't know who's taking the notes on that. And then on, item D on the next page, the last sentence, just says started instead of stated. And on general discussion, I don't believe Chief Dwyer was here. He was supposed to be here.
Correct.
Yeah, so I would just change that to omit referencing that he was there.
I think it said on the agenda, discussion with chief,
Right.
because at the time it was posted, he was expected, but yeah. He wasn't there.
All right.
Motion accepting this by October 30th as amended.
I'm taking. All right, moving on to discussion items. Item A is, a discussion of resident concerns regarding employee turnover. So just some history on this. Both Chris and I received several phone calls from residents with concern about employee turnover. Some of them had no involvement with town government, so we didn't really quite know what to do with it. At our October 4th meeting, we discussed it and decided that, if people wanted to make comments, that it should be in writing so that we were all listening to it at the same time, so it wasn't a, phone call here, phone call there. We also decided we weren't gonna engage on Facebook. I hope for obvious reasons, it's not really a good way to answer questions or to have a substantive dialogue. And then all being aware of the circumstances around recent departures of employees, we felt like there was really no there. So that kind of ended, and then there was a recent Facebook post in the last couple weeks bringing up this issue again. And I had sent a direct message, well, actually, I wrote a direct message and had to have Angus send it because I don't know how to post it on Facebook. So just asking that if people have questions, they reach out to the select board instead of trying to get answers on Facebook, which they did. Since then, we've received letters from 2 residents on this topic. So the purpose of discussing this tonight is to acknowledge the concerns, try to answer some of the questions that those two residents asked. And then, see where we stand. So in terms of tonight's meeting, this is not a public hearing. We have a couple people online. We're not really anticipating having a discussion with the public. This is really an opportunity for the select board to discuss this and see if we want to do anything about it. But if there are concerns or questions remaining after the meeting, I'm happy to meet with residents. I've offered that to a couple people already. So Chris, I thought I would there's like 4 items or 4 issues. I thought I'd just go through what I was able to find out and then we can discuss it. Does that sound good? So in terms of employee turnover, I mean, this is just a fact. All municipalities struggle with this, especially small towns, because we're competing against large cities who have larger tax base and can pay their employees more. But in spite of that, I did ask Angus to run a report on the number of employees that have separated from service in West Newbury over the last 3 years. 32 left over the last 3 years. 22 resigned, 9 retired, and 1 person's employment was terminated. Out of that 32, 24 of those don't report to the town manager. 18 of those were police officers or from dispatch. 4 were DPW employees. 1 was the library, which they report to the library director, and 1 was a health department person who the Board of Health is 1 entity within town hall who has direct supervisory authority over their employees. So of the 9 employees that left in the last 3 years that are working the town office building under the town manager, I just did a little background into why they left. I guess I'm speaking as the personnel liaison from the select board. This was a decision the select board made to have 1 person kind of be a resource for employees, also to be a sounding board for the town manager if disputes come up. So exit interviews are not required under personnel policy, but it's good practice. And Angus's office does try to have an exit interview with every person that leaves. As a liaison, I also follow up individually after to try to talk to employees and see what their experience was. Before the meeting, I also read all the resignation letters that were provided for those 32 employees that left over the last 3 years. So based on all that, I just want to kind of high level say of the 9 employees, 1 left because they had family issues and they decided to stop working, period. 1 employee left for a substantial increase in pay and better alignment with professional goals. We had 2 employees that were recruited by private industry, got a huge pay bump and worked remotely. So there's no way we can meet that. 1 employee needed more hours. They were a part-time employee. 1 employee moved to Florida. 1 employee had a planned retirement and then the position that they were in was changed to full-time, so they decided to retire early. Then the final 2, I followed up with, and they were in fact unhappy with management at town office building. The select board was fully aware of both of these circumstances, and we felt that their separation was in the town's best interest. So that, I think 2 out of all of those employees were actually, had reason to want to resign. So Chris, I don't know if you had any, you saw the table of,
I did my same analysis that you did, and it came down almost the same thing. And out of those 9, 3 retired, so you're down to the 6, and then I had 3, I think, went off to legitimately better opportunities, which you can't fault them for doing that. There were a couple of people who were unhappy. Again, I think what people have to understand is that if it was themselves that we were talking about, we have to be very careful. You have legal rights that are protected, and we can't sit here and there's a lot of background to some of these that we're not able to discuss publicly with anybody. And so I think it's very, very, very unfortunate that they're trying to discuss this on Facebook and handcuffing us that we can't respond, because then we would get sued. It's a terrible way to conduct a civil discussion on how a town is operated.
And I feel like based on that information, there's no there, unless people are unhappy and are just not expressing it, in which case there's nothing we can do if, people aren't willing to talk to us. I just want to answer a couple other questions that came up as part of this. There was some commenting that we should restore the personnel committee. The personnel bylaw was adopted in 1999. And the purpose was to establish and implement equitable personnel policies in administration. So the responsibility was assigned to the select board under this bylaw, and it also directed the formation of a personnel committee to assist in carrying out that responsibility. So the purpose of the personnel committee is not to hear employee disputes or anything like that, it was to establish personnel policies. The membership was pretty inconsistent over the decades before we adopted a town manager government. And they hadn't met for a few years, in fact, before Angus arrived. So after his arrival, he tried to recruit and support the committee to try to get it to help with job descriptions, market rate analysis, updating personnel policies, but he ended up doing most of the work. So the select board said, just put that aside for now. And then we ultimately got a grant and hired the Collins Center for Public Management to do all that work. So they drafted job descriptions for every position in town, which is something we didn't have, in a consistent format, which was another issue. They did a market rate analysis for employees in this area for similar towns, and also developed a wage classification system and pay grade, which is something we did not have. So those were the primary functions that the personnel committee was supposed to accomplish. And because we were able to get it done under the grant, the fall of 2023, the select board proposed a warrant article to repeal the bylaw. Given that, there was no activity on the committee and that the functions had already been satisfied. So Chris, I don't know if you have any comments of that or questions.
Yeah, I do. I'm not sure if it's public, but it was sent to the select board from a resident stating we should reestablish this committee and was happy to arbitrate. That's not how it works. Can't have residents trying to settle disputes with town hall employees. That's not the intent of it. Even if you re-implemented the personnel committee, that's not what they would be doing. So,
Yeah.
I hope they don't think that that's a legitimate request.
Yeah, I mean, there actually is a process for, any employee dissatisfied with any aspect of their employment. In the personnel policy, there's a process laid out, and it's based on talking to your direct supervisor. If that can't resolve the problem, going to the department manager, and if that doesn't work, then the select board is the last option. And if the concern is actually with the select board, there's a process for assigning a 3-member panel to hear it, so that there's no conflict.
Can I just make a comment on that?
Sure.
Anonymous accusations aren't anything that I'm ever gonna be comfortable engaging in and addressing, because you don't know what the validity of those are. So if somebody wants to have a conversation, you can send a confidential letter to the select board. Because we have no opportunity to ask questions and really dig into it at that point. So that becomes difficult when they're anonymous conversations.
From the public, yeah, I mean, if it's from an employee,
No, that's not
process,
referencing.
yeah. A couple other things I wanted to mention that I think the importance of direct resolution in a timely manner has been stressed to all employees and supervisors. I mean, that's really a critical part of good human resources management. There was a training a couple of years ago. I mean, Angus has a lot of HR experience from his other jobs. He stays up to date with the MMA program with human resources. And he actually brought in a consultant that he knew from working at prior town that did a management training with him and 9 senior staff members. And there's some excellent feedback on the effectiveness of that. So that was team building as well as management ability. So I guess the final topic that people had questions on were about the town manager. So people wanted to know what was the performance evaluation process. And so the select board does an annual performance evaluation of the town manager. We developed a template based on his job description or that position's job description. And this is the same way we do the other 3 contracted employee evaluations in town. Each select board member fills that form out and then the chair compiles it and then has a one-on-one meeting with the town manager to discuss the performance. This is a requirement of the contract, the town manager contract actually has to happen before annual town meeting every year. Also questions about the town manager's contract. It's a 3-year contract and it expires, the current version expires February 2026. So the select board will begin contract negotiations in our next meeting in executive session. I will say it's our intent to renew the contract. It remains to be seen if we'll be successful. You know, based on the unrelenting workload that Angus is facing and the number of hours he's spending away from his family. And frankly, the lack of respect or appreciation that he gets from residents. I mean, I would not still be here if I was him. So I hope that we'll be able to come to terms and work something out, because it would be a real loss to the town if he moves on. So that's all I was able to gather in this. I don't know if you wanna suggest any additional steps other than meeting people that still have concerns. What do you think, Chris?
Again, that's the best we can do. You gotta, you know, they've gotta reach out, they gotta say, let's have a confidential conversation.
Point of order, Madam Chair. If I may,
A point of order?
yes.
Yeah.
I'm puzzled that there's, can be no comment made by members of the public. Certainly, there are people who are listening in that may wish to comment on this. And I'm curious why you're citing that no one can comment at this point.
I think what I said at the beginning is this is not a public hearing, that people have the right to comment. This is a select board discussion. If we feel that we want to have a public meeting and you can give the opportunity to comment, you can make that decision.
Isn't the select board meeting a public meeting?
It is a public meeting, but the public does not have a right to speak unless it's a public hearing.
Well, that
It's the
seems to
same.
me,
Isn't that the same thing as the planning board?
we always listen to people
Right.
as a courtesy,
Yeah.
no doubt.
Mhm. Yeah. We have a lot on the agenda tonight. The purpose of this was.
You do.
The purpose of this was to raise, acknowledge the concerns, share the research and try to answer some of the questions that have come up. So I'm happy to talk about this further with you at another.
I think we would like to talk about it in a meeting, and I'm sure other people online would like to. If you were to schedule something in the future, I'd be amenable to that.
Okay, that's fair. Well, what do you think about that, Chris? A meeting just on this topic? Is there other stuff that you feel like should be discussed or just to hear people in person?
I don't know how deep you're down the rabbit hole you go, but is it something that can be addressed tonight? I don't know when it would take, you're not comfortable or?
Well, we have the Board of Health here, we have the water commissioners to discuss things.
You could do it in another 10 minutes, or if that's possible, I don't know.
All right, I mean, we could do that. 7:15. I guess my concern is all I've heard so far has been very generic, no specifics. So it's really difficult for us to say anything. If you just want to vent, I mean, I don't know how productive that is. So. We also have a couple people online. If you're online and you feel like you want to make a comment, if you could just do the raise hand function so I can kind of gauge how much discussion. Okay, I guess it's just you then. If you'd like to make a comment, you can.
Should I stand up and,
I think we can hear you.
You can hear, that's
Yeah,
fine.
if you want to just identify yourself.
I'm Brian Murphy, Hilltop Circle, and member of the planning board. I appreciate your analysis. I did write a note. I am very concerned about, over the last 5 years, about the personnel matters in this town. I'm particularly concerned about the morale of the staff in this town. And I appreciate that you can discuss so many people left, they went to better positions. People vote with their feet when they're unhappy, and they will go and look for a better job. And so you say, well, okay, they got a nice job, they got this, but there's a reason underlying why they make that choice. And I think that's what people who are concerned about this want to bring to your attention. One suggestion that I would make is that the select board consider retaining an independent entity to survey staff and to see what comes out of that. And it has to be directed solely with the select board.
Can I ask where you're getting this? Where the perception that staff are so unhappy is coming from? I mean, I know you have staff that work with you on the planning board.
That's correct.
So is that the extent of it, or do you interact with other staff that,
The vast majority are with staff that have left
but have you
in
spoken
a
with
planning
them?
capacity, correct?
Okay,
And their interactions with other personnel in this office over the last 5 years are what concerns me
okay, but it's,
as a taxpayer.
got it, so, but it's hearsay, it's not, you haven't spoken directly to. No, I'm just trying to understand. where
I don't
you-
work here,
Yeah,
I can only relate, and yes, so in that sense, yes, it is correct.
okay,
And I don't have recorded conversations.
I'm not suggesting that, I'm just trying to understand where the
That's-
perception is coming from, okay. All right. Oh, you should really quick.
Thank you.
There was a raised hand from someone else.
I don't see it.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, okay, I didn't see the raised hand, sorry.
That's okay. Well, I really do think we do need to have a discussion. You're saying that we can't discuss it on Facebook, but yet you're shutting us down in this meeting because of rules, and I respect that. And then our hands are kind of tied with, the fact that, we have to be careful with personnel policies, which I totally agree. And that, so I'm just concerned. A lot of people have come to me. And they have, I asked them if I can share, and they said, some of them said yes, and most of them said no. And I think we need to have a discussion, period. And what that looked like, that's on you.
Okay, thank you. All right, move on to the next.
Can I just clarify one thing?
Sure.
I didn't say they can't speak on Facebook. I just think it is unfair and unreasonable. When you do speak on Facebook, Tom, and that's fine. But we can't respond because we'd be in a legal quagmire, so.
Well, it's also just not an effective conversation, it's just people posting stuff, there's no dialogue, I don't think that's.
And that's right, you're right. And if you notice, all of my posts, I unmuted them, and I told people that we cannot have any discussions online. No credit was given. So all I'm saying is that we're trying to do the best that we can to control it. But every time I keep hearing some people saying that they've reached out to people in leadership, I got to be very careful, and they're not happy with the response. And so we can't say anything live on TV. We need to have a discussion.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't give you credit, I'm not on Facebook, so I wouldn't know, that you turned it off, but I appreciate it, if that's what you did, that's what I asked for.
And just for the record, West Newbury Community News is going through a huge facelift. We're going to be focusing on all town affairs only. So, and you made a comment, Wendy, at the last town meeting, which I totally agree with. I was sitting up in the front, and you had expressed concerns that things are getting out of hand, and Facebook, not in your words, was not properly used, or you wish that people would attend meetings and stuff. And you're absolutely correct. So we're going to try to use Facebook as a way to get people to get more involved and not to be discouraged. And one of the reasons why I started to do all these posts, people were coming to me, and my first reaction as somebody who is very familiar with organizational change management, the first thing I said, do these people know what the process is? What is the process? So I did a diligent research, and I looked at the entire personnel policy, and I looked at who is in charge and who, if somebody, say, for example, had an issue with Angus, right? Well, you can't go to Angus. So then they go to you. And if they're not happy with you, then you can create a 3-person panel. Look at how far we have to go to have a democratic, honest discussion about concerns. People should not have to go all the way up to the top above you, according to the personnel policy, to establish this committee. Now, I reserve the right to be corrected.
I don't think it's unreasonable if you have an issue with somebody to approach them directly. Right?
Well, but what if somebody is like, think about this exactly. Think about this. I raised a hypothetical in one of my letters. If I say, for example, I'm going to go ahead and say it. If I had an issue with Angus and he's also has an input in my evaluation of my salary and everything, yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, that's the way personnel works. You can't just bypass your supervisor if you have an issue with them and go
I'm
over-
sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
Well,
I
all I want to say is that there should be a process. Now, if I'm having a hard time with, and I'm not having, so you're basically saying if I'm not satisfied with the conversation with Angus, that I should go to you directly. That's what you're saying.
Yes, that's how it's laid out in the personnel policy. That is the grievance process.
Okay, and
And
so
it's based on employees, communicating with their supervisor and trying to work things out. That's good human relationships. You don't just
Okay.
complain behind people's back and try to go above their head. And that's not a good organizational approach.
Okay, and I appreciate you reiterating the personnel policy. I knew that this was going to be brought up, but I had submitted a second letter, which is basically was already mentioned. I'm concerned about the morale at the town hall, and I'm sorry. Is it bad? No, that's not for me to decide. But I wish other people would speak up, and eventually they will. But thank you for your time.
All right, Tom, can I just ask how much time you spend at the town hall?
How much time? Well, since FinCom, not much, but I do go there a lot, and I do know a lot of people offline. So,
Okay.
I'm not going to compete with you. I can't compete with you, Wendy. You live there.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to compete. I'm just curious. Okay. Well, we
But
can
when
certainly-
you ask that question, you're questioning my credibility. I basically said people are coming to me. I am a repository. I have information by real people with real experience, with real credibility. You can go ahead and question my credibility, but don't question the credibility of the people who came to me.
Okay, I'm not questioning your credibility. I'm trying to understand, where you're coming from. So I appreciate your input, and then if you want to have a conversation offline, I'm happy to do that. You might have some good ideas. I'm happy to listen.
I appreciate.
All right. So let's move on to item B, the discussion with Board of Health regarding procurement contracting for solid waste and recycling. So we're bringing this up at your request. I think you had requested to meet with us about this.
We did. It just means that since I've been on the Board of Health, we have negotiated every trash contract since 1997, when I get on here. And at that point, none of it was illegal, or nobody said we needed selectmen's approval to do all that kind of, we did the interviewing, we went out, get the bids and did the whole thing, and nobody ever told us it was wrong. Now, all of a sudden, it seems like they're saying that we shouldn't be doing this, that you guys should.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's laid out in the memo here. I mean, the last time this came up at FinCom, there was quite a bit of pushback that you hadn't put the project out to bid. This represents 5% of our operating budget, right?
You don't have to. You
I know you don't have to.
saw the letter from.
I knew that anyway.
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
we did too.
So FinCom's point of view was it's still good practice, right? If you
Mhm.
have that large a contract, put it out to bid. So I'm
Right.
saying that's where it started. It wasn't like all of a sudden we decided that,
Well, it did, because why has this not been questioned for years, I guess, is what.
I don't know,
Bob
all I
said.
can say is what we're doing now. I mean, and it started when FinCom brought this up as an issue, and we've been talking about it since then, with the intent of the next time the contract was up and had to be renewed, that we would, insist that it go out to bid. I mean, that's for the benefit of taxpayers.
We are going out for bid.
Okay,
That's where this whole discussion started.
that has not been posted on any of your agendas.
That we're
says-
talking about trash.
It has bid letters. Is that allowing people to know that you're going out to bid for?
We haven't agreed on the letter yet. We have a discussion which is in our minutes of our meeting.
Yeah,
Am I wrong? I mean, I understand, it's in our meetings, we are discussing it, we've come up, last time we met. One of us had a few changes we wanted to make, we're sending it out to only two of the companies, because there is only two. That accept our trash, and we're sending it out to three that all our trash. Is what our intent is, and that's why we've been in discussion.
yeah. And have you discussed it with the procurement officer at all? I mean, we
This
have,
is where it came to a halt.
yeah,
I mean, we didn't bring it to a halt, we were on our way to exercise to send them out, and then we were told that. We're not, the ones basically in charge of it, you might say. So that's why I think,
well, I think
Yeah, we
you're
were gonna go
extrapolating here.
excuse me,
All this is a legal opinion that the select board is the one that's responsible.
I understand that.
Unless,
I'm not upset, and if I raise my voice, it's because I can't hear, and I can't hear you.
yeah, I know, I have a full. so-
Okay, no, so we have, the three of us have been in discussion to send it out to, like I said, two people who accept our trash and three people that will possibly haul our trash.
Right,
And then you got me, why it came up all of a sudden,
well,
I don't know.
yeah, I guess why, it seems like all of a sudden, because we had no idea you were moving ahead with this, the last we knew, you were not interested in having to go out to bid, so,
We did go out for a bid last time. I see, this is why I'm confused.
all right. did you
Last
read-
time we
did you
went
read-
out,
you
we
read
did
the
go
memo?
out.
Yeah.
Did you read the memo from Angus on this?
What's that? I seriously.
Did you read the memo? It's right up on the screen there. This lays out what's going on, so I'm not sure what you're confused about. Is it that why?
I'm kind of getting just a hair confused. Maybe I didn't explain myself. We were in discussion in the board to send out letters to people. And then I don't know how anything got interacted, which is fine, because it's all public record.
Right.
That we were discussing it, and it's not our, I don't want to use the word duties, but it wasn't our duties. We didn't interact with you until someone interacted with us about it.
Right, so this is a change. I get that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is it may have felt abrupt because we didn't even realize you had embarked on this process. It's not obvious to an onlooker looking at your agendas that you were actively working on this. So that's what,
Chances, the problem is, we've never done it in the past.
I understand that.
And, so we followed procedures we've done for the past 30 years. And then all of a sudden we get a letter that basically cease and desist.
Not quite, but right.
So if you
No,
look
we
at,
see it discussed.
yeah, so this is a legal opinion from council,
Hmm?
right? I mean, are you questioning their opinion on this?
If it's the same one I have in my hand here. To me, it's wishy-washy. If my lawyers gave me wishy-washy like that, it wouldn't be working for me. You don't think it's wishy-washy on here?
I don't, I think it's very
You don't.
clear.
So on the opinion at the top, okay, of his opinion, I won't even point to the top of their opinion, but then when it gets down to the bottom sentence, that the select board can appoint people.
Right,
So in one hand, they're saying in their opinion, they don't believe it's up to the Board of Health. I read it through multiple times. And then down the bottom, it can be.
no, what they're saying is that it's the authority of the select board, and if the select board chooses, they can appoint somebody else to do it. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. Most towns, the select board does it themselves, but we have the option.
Correct. And
Okay, so that.
I'm not here to argue that. I'm here to, when I did read the letter, I thought it was extremely wishy-washy. I mean, I can't believe that up here it's not the opinion of, and I'm not gonna point unless you want me to if you want me to hold the meeting longer, I'll show you where. In their opinion, the Board of Health shouldn't. And then down at the bottom,
Okay.
the selectmen have the right to.
Yeah, I don't find that inconsistent, but that's my opinion.
That's fine. I can't change your opinion.
Yeah. So,
How do you people, how does the select board I guess then, I know you can't take a vote on it tonight, I get that.
Yeah,
How does the select board want to handle this? Because it is out of our hands.
also the idea was to have a conversation about how we can move forward, given this new information, yeah.
So Wendy, I just want to clarify something. So when I started on board, one of the first contracts that we did was this contract. And the way that I remember it is that we did want to solicit other vendors to give us, and there were limited vendors, especially as far as the collection, that would be willing to give us any estimates or any bids on it. And I think if I remember, when we went to the, just before that town meeting, the finance committee had questioned that there was a bid that was noted that was less, and I can't remember exactly how much it was as far as the collection. And then the board internally discussed it, and we discussed a track record that we had with G Mello as far as over the years, because the Board of Health, the health department, handles all the management of that, any residents that have complaints or barrels missing or anything like that. So they had a real good sense of that. And with that, and with with the package that he was going to offer, Mello was gonna offer, I was under the impression that we did make the decision to do that, even though if you looked at just the numbers, it looked like, we were picking a more expensive vendor to supply. So I just wanted to clarify my understanding, that that's your understanding, that that was part of our history. Because I remember when I came on board, I was like, well, we have to have other people, we have to show some transparency here, is the fact that there's no favoritism, that we're getting outside vendors to look at this and give us prices, and then as a board, we could make a decision, independent of that, and choose whatever one we wanted to, because we understood that, and we knew that that was the way that the state laws were set up. So was it the point that you were making as far as that we weren't going to send out for bids? Were you reflecting on now, or were you referring back to the previous history? Like, are you concerned about that? I just wanted to understand that.
Yeah, I was just saying, that's when this whole discussion started percolating with the select board, is after that FinCom meeting, when it seemed as though the Board of Health.
Years
No,
ago, right?
yes, years ago.
Okay, right,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Yep.
So that's just when it started, and since then, we've been talking to other towns and trying to find out how other towns do it, and so
Okay.
that was the genesis of this change. It wasn't all of a sudden, although
Yeah.
I appreciate it appeared like that to you.
Let me just make one quick comment. I wanna say Mello does a great job. There is no question about that, and they're a great vendor, so this is not about Mello.
Oh, no, and I
It was
was.
impressive.
No, you guys love him, I know.
No, I don't think that should be, because I think the company's been very receptive, especially how they handle pipe state and all the other ancillary things that they do for us. But I totally agree on the fact that, that there needs to be the understanding that it does go out to bid, and that we do look at them, and those bids should be shared, that people can look at them and decide if it should be available. And we did do that before. In reference to the fact that it didn't go out to bids, we did receive bids. I think we received only two bids for.
We sent it out for 3. Casella wasn't interested in taking on any more, and Wheeler Brady was the same way. And this is when we had kind of that whole recycling crash, if you wanna call it. And we did send it out to 3, 2 of them. This time we had the same exact. We're formatting, because we haven't done it. We're formatting that we want a 5-year contract. And last time, the ones that Casella, who said they would only do it 3, and we didn't feel as if the deal was good. So we did go out to bid last time.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we sent out bid.
Yeah, so I think another point that we're trying to make is we have a chief procurement officer now, and this work should go through that office. Rather than just going out and, a letter from you guys.
Yeah, I understand the need, the transparency, that's important. And I don't think the board was ever trying not to be transparent in our role. And I understand that it's important to have a standardized process that would go along with this. But my concern would be, because the the health department, along with the Board of Health, and, you know, specifically Blake, we have a lot of experience dealing with these vendors. And so I think that however the contracting is decided on, I think it's very important that the Board of Health, with our experience, and ultimately will probably be the responsible party as far as handling this, you know, intrinsically has the ability to be able to, you know, review and make a recommendation on what the vendor should be, for the select board to review.
Yeah,
And I understand that the select board has to, along with the Board of Health, has to be able to, you know, support their decision as far as how it is. But I'm concerned that, if the letters that are being sent out are not complete as far as all the elements that have to go into this new contract, you know, because, was it 5 years ago that we did this? Or
With Mellows, for five.
5 years ago, 5 years ago, we retrieved, and one day I was up at Pikes Day retrieving all the everybody's barrels that they weren't gonna use because they were gonna get new barrels, right? So it was a
I think
huge.
we were up there working.
Yes, yes, it was, it was quite, a good part of my public service. But anyways, stacking a 30 push up. But the point is that I wanna make is that it was a very, very big change. It was a big change. And so going forward, we don't necessarily wanna have to go through that change again. So there are elements to the new contract of the new vendor that, you know, they're gonna have to be able to do, you know, automated lifting of the barrels and then the decision on how Mello owns those barrels that we have right now. And is Mello gonna retrieve those? Are we gonna buy them from Mello, you know, the incubator? So I just wanna make sure that when the bid proposals go out, okay, that the board has the ability to look at that and to make sure that it's inclusive as far as, you know, what is actually needed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
You know,
this can't happen without the Board of Health.
Right.
You guys, that's what you do. Yeah, so it's
And I love
really.
I personally, I think, at the next meeting, Tom, we're trying to wrap up that letter. We certainly, I don't even wanna use the word share, we're just send it down to you. I mean, cause it sounds like it could be your decision as much as ours. And we'd love to send down the letters that were sent out for bids. I mean, I'd like to work as a team,
Yeah.
all of us, and I think it's worked pretty successful for X amount of years.
Yeah.
So that's all we wanna do, is sign the contract, in all honesty.
Well, so we just need to engage the procurement officer as well to make sure everything's up.
We just wanna be part of the decision, I guess what upsets me is the decision making
Yeah,
on a person.
I guess I
With it.
assume that 100%, so it didn't even occur to me that you would not be part of this. I mean, you are the ones that know all the facets of each service.
We appreciate that, thank you.
Chris, did you wanna add anything?
Yeah, I'm laughing at that because I know nothing about trash on the street that goes away. So I think the intent has always been. You can always deal with the technical components of the trash, we review the contract and go through. We're not like looking to rip the rug out from you whatsoever. I agree, I like working cooperatives, it would
Absolutely,
be a really nice way to go.
yeah,
I
we
appreciate
agree.
And so you plan to go to the meetings anyway, so maybe that is a good way for us to have a connection with.
I do.
Yes, you do. You already said that.
yeah,
And I think we did discuss it that evening, quite frankly, no offense.
and that will be extremely important. That at our meetings, when this is being discussed, that there is a select board member there
Yeah.
and prepared to discuss.
Mhm.
So that there's no sense of just reading in meeting minutes.
Right.
So that's very imperative.
Yeah.
Because I think ultimately our role will be to make a recommendation to the select board
Mhm.
on what we feel and if there needs to be a discussion on why we support that, that most certainly should happen.
Mhm.
So we hope that the communication can be really good. It's not a question of, you know, relinquishing power or control.
Right.
It's about the transparency, it's about the, you know, the consistency in the contract. I think that's important. And I think having the select board involved in this and more aware of it is gonna allow them to be able to support the decisions a lot better.
Yeah.
Cause it's not solely about money, but it most certainly has to be looked at, because that's a big part of it.
Right.
So that's my comments, thank you.
Okay, so if you are not able to go, I mean, I can go. But at least until we get to the point where there's an actual decision and conversation, then maybe it's a joint meeting, right?
So our next meeting will be December 17th,
Okay,
and the letters that we're gonna go out to the haulers, the three haulers, as well as the disposal companies have already been drafted, and they were drafted, the board reviewed them at the last meeting we had. Chris cannot attend, so those letters are pretty much ready to get fine tuned and checked over by whether it's you or whether it's in Caitlin.
well, Caitlin definitely needs to be in the room.
Correct, but we can talk about it next week, but the letters, the board had already drafted those letters a month ago to send out to the vendors.
So we had made,
Can you share that with us?
yeah, we had made those edits, we had made the edits that we discussed at that board meeting.
I think she has,
Okay.
I believe she has.
Those.
That's what I'm saying, we're, last meeting, we're in our last discussion of a few things that we
Yeah.
thought. We will have, well, she doesn't work tomorrow, Monday morning, she will send it over to the select board.
Who's she?
Rachel, sorry.
Hey, she hasn't.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I take it for granted, so I thought everyone knows it. Rachel, we can ask Rachel to send it over on Monday to the board.
That'd be great.
All
Or
right.
just send it to Angus and he can just, so you know.
I guess, well, it's usually one big group, I think.
Well, it's easier if you just send it to Angus, then he can make sure Caitlin has a copy and
Okay.
he can distribute it to the board. Angus, did you wanna add anything else to this? Does that seem like a good way to move forward?
Yeah, that sounds
Great.
good.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you for having us.
Yep.
You should have written.
The next item is discussion with the Board of Water Commissioners, which with one commissioner.
The only one here.
Yeah. So this is regarding the Newbury Water IMA. So this was something that our two boards had talked about 2 years ago with Ivrea. And then I had mentioned it to Jack. And he said that he had not seen it, so I sent it to him. And so then we got this signed, letter from you. Just wanna know if this was not on your agenda, so you probably have to put it on your next agenda and sign it.
Well, we discussed it at that last meeting,
Yeah,
and pretty much everything Jack had said in the letter, we discussed.
I know, but what I'm saying is it wasn't a posted item on your agenda, so technically the vote is not valid.
Okay,
So, I mean, it's a formality, but just so you're aware. So you have made some different, I won't say demands, but different, items than your original.
well, there's a couple of things. Number one is the 1980 agreement between Newburyport and us, the running water. Is long since passed. I took the original agreement, whited out a few things, put something in, but we have not discussed that as a committee or a board. It makes some changes. But that's something we need to talk about as a board. And I think probably we need to involve, I don't know if we need to involve the Board of Selectmen or not, but a couple of other things that do kind of come to mind is number one, I think you discussed it earlier, was whatever they were gonna do with the dam on around 113.
Yeah.
As long as it does not affect our well field, it really doesn't matter a lot, but if it's going to do anything to affect that well field, then we want to be involved.
Right, so I think, Bob, I mean, the agreement on water is one thing, but we're looking at this as like a package.
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
I understand.
Try to incorporate everything.
The other thing I think we really need to look at, and that's more unfortunately you folks than everybody else, is the 1908 agreement.
Right,
Because that gives the city of Newburyport carte blanche, basically to do whatever they want. And,
right, but I mean, I remember when I was on the Board of Water Commissioners, we looked into that and there's no recourse for us. I mean, I'm not sure what it
it
is.
seems to me people like the MWRA and people like that are starting to fight that back, because there were, a lot of them were in the same boat. I think there is something out there to do it. Besides, Newburyport wants to work something. They realize they have to do something
Mhm.
with us.
Okay,
So I'm just saying it should be a point of discussion, because
it would be nice to get that revised. for
yes, it
sure.
would. And I think that's something we should look at.
Yeah, so this was part of the conversation with Ivrea, who's the special counsel
Yes,
for
it was.
water, and she Angus, didn't she basically say, you know, there's really no recourse on that?
She said at this early 20th century, there were a lot of similar special acts put in place where generally the bigger community was given rights to the water in the smaller community, and that while, you know, it's clearly unfair. She said there's a lot of them around the state. I think, you know, you could certainly look to some legislative act to change that, but obviously, you know, we're still the smaller community, with, you know, I think less weight. I think this, personally, I think the suggestion, which I know Wendy, you had made the same suggestion as well, of looking to negotiate rights for the town to develop the groundwater within the Artichoke Reservoir, or within the watershed, seems really something that could potentially be agreed without change to legislation. Yeah, the town could try to initiate a special act. I think just realistically, and this is what we heard from Ivrea, that's it, I don't know that there's a realistic path. But
Okay,
I just think it's something that we need to. And I agree with Genghis, if we can get the groundwater, there's several sites that are in that particular area, but within town that actually flow that way, it would help us tremendously.
We talked about that earlier in the meeting because we have, funds, we're gonna be looking at another parcel. We said, let's consider talking to Newburyport. We said, Wendy and Angus will connect and see if there is any opportunity to look at exploring groundwater within their watershed. Because we know there are certain parcels that would be very favorable,
Yes,
that are not even close to their reservoir where there's no impact. So that's,
this is true.
and that's in your letter, and we heard Wendy had suggested it as well.
Hmm.
I'm gonna throw out another comment, it may be disruptive, but it's what I believe. I think at a certain point, West Newbury and Newburyport should consider regionalization of water as a whole. I mean, you know, we'd have one water department because we have the resources in the ground and in the reservoirs, they have the filtration and the administration. I think simply because there's you know, a border between the two towns, that we're not working cooperatively together for water to benefit all the residents, I think is a huge mistake. I think going forward, at some point, it would be prudent to look at regionalizing the water within the entire area.
It may be. It hasn't been for 30 years that I know of. They won't even talk to us.
I know, it's
But
gonna be a big
now's the
push, but I
time
just
to
think,
look at, it may be time to look at something like that.
it's a good time to start the conversation, particularly with, you know, this IMA and they wanna put that pipeline under the ground, and I think they need things and we need things, and they're not mutually exclusive, so.
do you have connections with the water and sewer commissions? I mean, do you know people? on
I
it?
do,
Yeah, so part of the problem is it's not clear who we even negotiate, right? We have the city
Yeah.
council, we have the
Beautiful
commission.
relationship, some of the guys that work in the water department, it's like. They don't talk to them much either, and
And then the mayor, so it's just,
I mean, even when I was working for the department, I knew all the guys in the treatment plant and all this kind of stuff. We got along very well.
Yeah.
As far as the upper echelon, they didn't know who we were.
so I think we have to get them to figure out who their negotiating team,
right.
you know, I think that was the next step we were looking for, is to. You know, so we can start talking about those issues.
yeah, and I had correspondence with Mayor Reardon as recently as the last 3 weeks. And I said exactly, you know, he sent me a kind of a gracious email after his reelection. And I sent him a response promptly, I congratulated him, and I said, you know, we'd really like to get together, and that the key thing is gonna be getting a team from the city that's representative of whomever needs to be a signatory to an IMA. We know for certain that would be the mayor and the council. The question that we don't know is their water and sewer commission a signatory to the IMA or not? Because if they are, they would need to be involved right from the start. And so I sent him a pretty detailed note back, and yeah, haven't had a response, but we are working to get a meeting in the next 2 weeks on the dam project. So we'll continue to, you know, but I think where we need to go is where we're trying to go in 2023 with that letter that we sent. to try to get the, kind of working group comprised of Water Commission, Select Board together with the city, kind of decision making.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
So, that letter that you talked about, that's already been sent to Newburyport, so are you thinking you wanna revise it to add these terms?
well, that letter, the March 2023 letter was, it's a public document, so they're aware of it, but it wasn't addressed to them. It was really a document or.
But you shared
Yeah, they're aware of it, but it's, I think if there are gonna be additional, terms or items that are discussed and, then I think it would be really good to update that so
Okay.
that it reflects the collective position of both boards today,
it. Mhm.
not just 2 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, because if this was not approved by all of us, then we need to revisit that. And,
Well, it was when we drafted in 2020.
well, what I mean is the letter we sent a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that needs to be relooked at and reloaded.
all right, so where do we go from here? Any ideas, Angus?
Well, I think updating that March 2023 letter to add other provisions here, I mean, I think once you have a full board and Rob's is here, I think it'd be good if you talk through each of the items to see if those, if you share those, positions. But I think if we can get that March 2023 letter, to where both boards are supportive of it, that's where we, tried so hard a couple of years ago to get something where we could speak with one voice, so I think getting that updated to where it's, reflective of both boards today is gonna be good. And then what I told the mayor in my note to him a couple of weeks ago was that I knew Jack had given me a heads up that we could expect a letter. He sent me like a quick email basically saying I'm working on a letter that was maybe several days or a week before we got this. So in my note to the mayor, I said, we may be updating our thing. So I thought sometime in maybe January would be more realistic than like December, because I knew it would take some time to work through this. So, but I think if we can update our negotiating position essentially, and then really push to get a meeting with the city's team.
Okay, so then we would also add the dam to
Yeah.
this, to this.
Well,
list.
I think, maybe, it should be discussed. I think whether it needs to be part of an IMA or not. I think is debatable. I think, Bob said correctly, and, it's been said before, like, that project cannot hurt the town's interest. So we'll do everything we can to make sure that won't happen, and that won't happen. That would not be allowed through permitting anyhow. And that's not what the city wants to do.
Yeah.
Can that project be done in a way that it also helps the town's interest? That would be great.
Yeah.
And so that's something we wanna fully explore, and I think that's really the purpose of the meeting that, we're putting together in the next 2 weeks.
Mhm.
But does that need to be part of a grant bargain?
No.
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily
Part
needs
of
to be, because I think where that is on a kind of a more accelerated track in terms of getting to the next stage of design. There might be a reason, because that's not, unlike the pipeline where that would require work within public rights of way, that the select board have authority over under the 1908 legislation. The dam project, it doesn't go within public rights of way. It's really nothing to, as far as I know, it's nothing to do with your board. I think it's to do with the Water Commission, and it's to do with the Concom from a permitting standpoint.
Mhm.
So I don't think we want to overcomplicate that one necessarily.
You good?
Yeah, the other comment is, we talked earlier about decoupling. So you and Angus are gonna attempt to talk to Newburyport
Yeah,
about opportunities on groundwater. And again, as long as, we've got parcels that are a mile away from any water that they own. So maybe we come up with a list with our consultant of 3 or 4 parcels we'd like to explore. Run it before Newburyport before we invest money in drilling on them.
Mhm.
But I'd rather have that decoupled from the IMA, because that's much further down the road.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we've got at least a site that's on the den property, 2 wells on it that proved out. So I mean,
that what?
there's 2 wells on the den property.
Yeah,
That's proved out well. I mean, there was enough water there.
But they were abandoned in terms of,
They were abandoned from my understanding. Again, I was working for the water department. I was not a commissioner. It was abandoned for two reasons. Number one is it interfered with Bob Knowles as well. And my comment back was, so you give him free water for the rest of his life. Who cares? You got a well site that's gonna work. No, we can't do that. The other thing they wanted to do was run a pipeline from the Dunn property, which is on Chase in Middle Street, across land up through basically Dunn's property and connect into basically this side of the pump station.
mhm,
Oh my God, we can't do that either. That's where it went, it died right there.
wow,
For whatever reasons, like I said, I was working here, I wasn't part of anything.
The current issue now is it's in the watershed area of Newburyport's reservoir, so they can say, no, because we hired the consultant to look at sites that we could drill. That was the number one thing they had to exclude was anything that Newburyport.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So that's the hurdle we have to overcome, the other things I think could be dealt with as well.
You know, they did that when they put in the well field too. The report swore them down. In fact, I think they took us to court.
Yeah.
Saying we were overflowing, we were stealing their water. Well, they did a 10-day pump test and overflowed the dam, so they weren't taking anything from the reservoir, so.
yeah. All right. Good, so, you think we should draft something first and send it to the water commissioners too?
Yeah, I think, we've got that letter, I think, we got it the first place, so we can just update it and then get it. We could have it on your next agenda and your, I don't know when you guys meet next.
I'm not sure, but we can.
If it's-
put it over-
But,
Oh, yeah, I guess it was the 22nd, yeah.
of December?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so it would be timely, cause we could, it won't take long, it's 2 or 3, minor revisions to that.
Those minor revisions were only because of growth. We went from, what, 150, 175 to 200,000.
I think, yeah, I mean, this will all be negotiated, but that's gonna be tough for them to agree to an increase there, cause the actual use is so much less than 175,000, so. I just know from going to meetings with them, but it's all gonna be negotiated.
All right, good, thank you. Let's see, next item is, discussion on the work scope for the comprehensive plan visioning process.
Right?
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
So I was at the planning board meeting this week and it sounds like they feel like this is ready to go. Chris and Ann were gonna do some,
Not this Chris.
not this Chris Riley, the town planner, we're gonna finalize this on Tuesday. It has not been reviewed by the chief procurement officer yet, so that's something that has to happen. I don't know, Chris, I know you had some comments.
Probably, who's signatory to signing the contract on this?
No, I asked Angus that earlier.
Yeah, so one of the prior opinion we got from town council several weeks ago said, basically that. Contracts that are subject to 30B would be the chief procurement officer, contracts that are not subject to 30B would be the town manager. Obviously, comprehensive planning under state statute is under the oversight of the planning board, so I did ask him that specific question. So I haven't gotten an answer to that yet, so. But these services are exempt from 30B.
Mhm.
So it's it could be set up as a qualifications-based selection. The way it's drafted is set up as an RFP, which is generally a price-based selection. I'm not sure that that's the right way to go. I think it would be better to do a qualifications-based selection, but.
And some of the statements in here do refer to qualifications.
Yeah.
based, So I think there's some inconsistencies that we can.
Yeah.
find out.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I can run through, I just put some notes on it. June 30th to 26th, is that a schedule? It seems aggressive, I don't know.
It does.
I don't know, that just sort of struck me after wondering about the student. I hope somebody goes through and proofs it There's as many spelling and typos and quotes floating around that shouldn't be. Under the approach and list I think there are 8 elements that get addressed. And that's the way it was back in 1999, we did the previous plan. I think the way times have changed today, I would encourage the planning board to look at a couple of new components, and one would be the impacts and considerations of climate change. Another one would be energy efficiency and utilization. And then the third would be the consequences of state mandates and regulations. I think all 3 of those are issues that have come to the forefront very recently that traditional master plan didn't have, but that doesn't mean they couldn't have their own categories to address those, and I think those are gonna be very, very hot topics
Mhm.
going forward in the town, so. Yeah, I know you could say, well, some of those are encompassed in some of those categories, but I think they merit their own, so, yeah, be one. Talks about the survey the consultant will prepare. When we were on the previous master plan committee, which we can't call it master plan, which they're doing here a couple of times.
Mhm.
It's gotta be comprehensive plan anymore, it's my understanding, you get in trouble. Plus, in one document, you gotta have continuity. So on the previous comprehensive plan, I think for us, I found the most not critical part, but the thing that gave us the most input was the survey that we put out. We spent a ton of time on it. Because we realized at the time that how you even ask a question solicits a certain response, and you could skew the results, and we wanted. And we did get really, I mean, I was amazed at some of the responses we had. So I don't think just the consultant prepares and does a survey, I think the committee that gets established should be intimately involved with that, so.
I just had a question on it. It says the town intends to negotiate the hourly billable rates. Is that something that's typically done?
Not my experience,
Yeah,
now.
so this is under proposal form. So that you can terminate the
Yeah, I see what
negotiation,
you're saying.
yeah.
No, I mean, you would generally negotiate at a qualification based selection, you would select the vendor that is most qualified. You would see if you can negotiate scope and budget that was agreeable.
Mhm.
If you can't, you would then move to the next most qualified firm. But it wouldn't be the rates that would be
Okay.
negotiated, it would be this
Scope,
the scope.
yeah, okay.
So we have the same language in the River Road, our you. The same kind of, you give us your best proposal, and then the, you negotiate with them, and if you can come up with an agreeable
Mhm.
scope and budget, you sign a contract, if you can't, you start working with the next firm. Anne raised her hand, I didn't know if you saw.
Oh, sorry, hey Ann.
Hello, thank you for taking a look at this. As Wendy said, we consider this to be a draft and are still looking for input, so we'd be glad to have, sounds like Chris has pretty specific input. I've made a few notes, but Chris, maybe you and I can touch base, or you could send an email to the planner with your comments. Knowing, we understand this is town funds that were appropriated, so of course it's gonna go through the town to send out I think it is an RFQ. Angus, wouldn't you agree with that?
I totally agree, yes, I totally
Yeah.
agree with that.
Generally, design type services are quals based.
Yeah,
we want-
it certainly should be, yeah.
Yeah, we want the right fit for, for the kind of work that the firm has done, and that they're gonna work well with us on crafting a comprehensive / master plan, which I guess we will only call a comprehensive plan from now on. So that'll be one of the corrections that will be taken care of. Chris, to address your question about the various elements that you think should also be included, I'm finding the line between visioning and the actual plan itself to be one that's a little bit squishy. So just because something isn't specifically called out in the visioning doesn't mean that it won't be included in the ultimate comprehensive plan, but we'll take your comments, and we'll take them and incorporate what we can. Let's see, what else? I think this will be a matter, once we get the language straightened out, of working with Caitlin. Is that correct?
Yep,
Yeah,
yeah, she's got this very much on her radar. Yeah, she and I
Right,
started talking about this before the town meeting vote, and
Yeah.
she's.
Yeah, and I
Uh,
know she's been in touch with Chris about a consultant list and all that. So I think this is a developing story, but I think, we're getting there and we're pretty excited to try to get somebody on board. We did talk about the date for things to be returned to us. It seems like no one works much around the holidays these days. So we may find that our timeline is too aggressive once it finally gets out the door. We may need to revisit that. Certainly not December 31st. That's not in the latest version that we have. Certainly not.
yeah,
I think we had moved it to January 19th,
15th,
16th,
yeah.
something. Yeah, 15th. Yeah. At a certain point, if people are interested, uh, not that we aren't special and unique, but this is the kind of thing that these firms do, and they should be able to fairly readily respond to this, I think. So I'm not sure that 3 or 4 weeks, I don't know, 3 weeks, is that unreasonable? Someone tell me if they think it's unreasonable.
I don't know.
My guess, I mean, I spent 8 years on the consulting end, and I think 3 years is, or 3 weeks is generally reasonable. If it's around the holidays, I would definitely extend it, to 4.5, just out of respect for people's time, but.
Yeah,
The general bid process for what I agree with you, Ann, is a pretty straightforward project from a consultant's point of view, because this is what they do.
Mhm.
I think 3 weeks is generally a good turnaround. So
Okay,
one
well,
other thing I like to do, having been on the consulting side of the table, is to set a deadline of a Monday instead of a Friday. It would always drive me nuts as a vendor, if people set a deadline on Friday. I'm like, you're not gonna read it over the weekend. Like, let me as the vendor have
I
the
know.
weekend to work on it and set the deadline. There's those little things that I
Yeah.
do think make a difference in terms of, giving people enough time to put their best foot forward.
In terms of the vibe, yeah. Yeah, we talked about that. It turns out that Monday following is MLK, but hey, we'll make it Tuesday then. We'll see. We'll see once we get this pulled together and work with Caitlin, we'll see what the date is that day, and then we'll fix our date accordingly. But if we can go for January 20th or so, maybe we'll try to do that. We'd like to get going on this.
I do have a theory of where the June 30th might have come from. And I agree, it feels a bit aggressive, but the part of the idea of the visioning phase came out of work last winter and early spring with an eye toward the one-stop grant. And that grant is likely to be due in the March-April timeframe. And I think if to be competitive for that, in my view, this visioning does not by any means need to be complete, but you would want to have your vendor under contract, and you'd want to be far along that when you're applying for state funds for the bigger amount of money for the overall comprehensive plan, not just the visioning process,
Right.
that you're far enough along that they feel confident that if they give you the grant, you're going to be able to deliver within the time frame. Because the one-stop grant, we looked at it last winter, and at that point, if we had applied, it would have had a deadline to expend all the funds by June 30th of 2027. That felt a little too, 18 months is not really as much as it seems like. So, so I think, but Chris Riley may have put in the June 30th thinking like to position ourselves for that grant. So I think
Yes.
my guess is the intent of that was, I would share that. I don't think June 30th is a magic date, but I do think if we are gonna go after the one-stop grant, we should be looking to get the visioning process done, I would say by, maybe around Labor Day. I think we could still be competitive for a one-stop grant, because realistically, they're not gonna make their grant awards till summertime anyway.
Right. No, in fact, now that I hear you saying that, Angus, I think you and Chris Riley and I had a conversation about that.
Yeah,
The fact that if we make solid progress, then we're in a good position to apply for the grant, knowing that the work will not be completed. And we do have language here that says it may be extended for a valid reason. And that would certainly, that seems like it would be pretty straightforward if we wanted to extend it. My sense of deadlines is make them relatively aggressive, in the hopes that you might have a chance of actually getting there. So I think we should stick with it. Okay, well,
So-
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So I'm just wondering, I mean, I have a number of edits. Should we try to consolidate these and send them one document?
Well, my suggestion was to address Ann's first thing. I'd like to hit a couple of ones that are quite bothersome, but all the little edits are irrelevant. So what I'll do is I'll pull out my pages, I'll give it to Angus, he can scan it and distribute it as appropriate.
Okay,
That'd be helpful, and then they can get compliant.
Yeah, I mean, one general question I had, Anne, is I looked at other examples of RFQs for the visioning part, and many of them have a pre-planning process and then a visioning process. And so it's not clear to me whether that pre-planning is built into this visioning scope, or whether it's just not. I can send you examples of the ones that I was looking at.
well, I think this is not an area of expertise of mine. I
Okay.
would have to say pre-planning and visioning sound an awful lot like they might be the same animal.
Well, it's actually two different parts of the phase one. I found in three different RFQs, the same, pretty much the same scope, and they had a specific pre-planning and then visioning. Each one was 4 months. So.
It may just be a way of breaking down visioning.
Maybe,
I'm feeling a little cautious about this because I don't know the exact language of the article that was approved either.
yeah.
Maybe-
It was pretty broad, and it was, I was actually looking at it, earlier today, because when I sent the question over to town council, I wanted to include the actual motion that was voted,
Oh,
because the funding was,
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
it's pretty broad.
okay.
all right, go ahead, Chris.
I'll make it quick if I can. I want to go back to the three additional categories that I added. I would add them simply because you're establishing a framework for who's gonna follow through on this. And I think obviously climate change is fiscally gonna hit this town so hard eventually, simply with the River Road conversation. And then so suggestion, take it for what it's worth.
Okay.
Task number 5 is vision elements, and it says the consultant will vet the existing plan's vision and establish elements, blah, blah, blah. I think that's, I would not do that. I think what that's gonna do, it's a 26-year-old plan that has outlived its lifespan. And I think if they do that by trying to vet the existing plan, it's gonna start them with a bias that'll be unreasonable. Because things aren't the same today as they were 26 years ago at all. With that. Under the comparative criteria, when you start evaluating proposals, the one thing that really bothered me was when you have a category unacceptable, and it's basically the proposal is incomplete, it does not meet most of the requirements, they still get 3 points. They should get 0 points. If it's that unacceptable, that's sort of giving them a free throw on the rating, and it could skew the results, so I'd be very careful of that. I'll leave it at that for now, and I'll send on
Great.
the rest of my marked up edits and do with
Okay.
them what you would like.
Well, I appreciate Chris and Wendy, you're taking the time to compile these comments, because I know you're both very thoughtful about this.
I mean, most
There
of
it
mine
is.
are questions or editorials, so, I mean, there's like, a couple paragraphs that are repeated, so it needs
Yeah, all
some.
that stuff. We know there's stuff that's sort of out of order and
Yeah,
but
okay.
send it anyway, because it
Well,
does.
that's what I heard, I was like, wait, don't send it.
No, you should
And I
send
did
it.
put
You should
up
send it.
on the share screen here, this is the actual.
Oh,
vote that was
okay.
taken, and
Oh, wow,
You can
that's
see
nice and
it's very
general.
broad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's super general. Okay. All right. All right, so $45,000 of seed money is basically what we have.
Yeah, one thing, and you may recall this, and from prior discussions we've had, but we had verified that the state, if we do go after the one-stop grant, does consider this as the local match. So that was one of the advantages of getting the initial local appropriation.
Indeed, and in keeping it as non-specific as it is. Yeah, that's great. That's great. I do remember that. Thank you. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
and one
we'll
other
move
thing,
on. Yep, sorry.
just wanted to say, most of the other RFQs I looked at had just an intro about the town to kind of set the framework for the work that's gonna be done. I mean, maybe not absolutely necessary, but I think it just makes for a more complete, package.
Can you send, would you mind sending a link to the examples that have a good intro?
Sure,
That'd be
sure.
fun to see. I think that sounds useful. Okay.
Anyone else?
Just a quick question, when you get, this set and ready to go, are you going to, I don't wanna say solicit, but I guess that's the best word, firms? You're not just gonna put it out there, you're gonna.
Oh, absolutely.
Contact.
Yeah, no,
certain-
there's a list that Chris Riley's working on, I think 6 or 8 firms, like specific.
We find it was critical, if you don't do that, you.
Oh, yeah.
You could be dead in the water.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
Right, yeah, yes. Yes, he has experience working with various people that he, in his experience, and Angus may have some ideas too, people that we think might be well suited for this and they should be approached. Um, you know, generally to gauge their interest, for sure.
Thank you.
Great,
All right, thanks very much.
yeah.
Thank you.
Next item is consideration of investment policy committee role and revision of the financial policy. So this, I don't know, Chris, if you're aware, this was prompted by a resignation from one member of the committee, followed by the other 2 members chiming in saying we should just repeal it because we're not meeting. So,
Well, I'm the select board rep to it, and it says you meet every 6 months or something, they met once,
No.
2 or 3 years, and it's been nothing, so
yeah,
I didn't know they resigned, because they don't have.
yeah, this was just in the last week,
No,
so that's why it's on here. It seems like,
Who's resigning? Yes.
well, they all said that.
Yeah, Lark, Chris Wild and Gene.
They all resigned?
Yep.
Someone to share.
Don't let it go to your head. So so the question, well, they suggested that we repeal the committee, so, I just want to put it on here to see if you think there's value to it. I mean, it's not cited anywhere else other than in this investment policy.
So the who takes care of the investments, decisions and
The
everything.
treasurer, which is what they're paid to do.
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
Well, and in fact, I mean, there's some backstory on this that's interesting in terms of that exact question, Chris, that you asked. So the treasurer has always had the authority to manage the town's investments under Mass General Law. She works with the investment manager, Cambridge Trust, they're the ones who do the actual trades, but she's the one who is statutorily responsible for managing the investments. The investment policy committee is advisory to the treasurer. And there was some discussion in my first 6 months that had started before I started here, but Joe Anderson, I remember, was pretty keen on this. There's a town by town meeting vote can adopt what's called the prudent investor rule, whereby the town can establish a separate body that then, instead of the treasurer, actually has the authority to manage the funds. And that is something that had been discussed in a couple of meetings of the select board and the investment policy committee back in the second half of 2018 into early 2019. As that played out, and I'll preface by saying there were a million other things going on, and while it was on a couple of agendas and was discussed, I don't remember it really being a deep dive. It felt to me that something like Joe, and I think Archie was pretty knowledgeable on that. So two members of the board were really knowledgeable, but I guess I would take with a grain of salt the outcome of that. But what I recall was that as this idea got kind of worked through and it became clear that the individuals who would be serving on this new body would have to make disclosures of any conflict of interest, and many of the people on the committee have, they're in the money management business. They basically were saying, we don't want to do that. And so that was my recollection. That idea kind of petered out. And so since that time and leading up to that time, this committee on paper has been advisory to the treasurer. And
Okay,
yeah,
so then we would just need to omit that part of the,
Well, the thing is, this investment policy statement is a very important document, and it's something that we, we file with our, bond continuing disclosures. I don't know that it's something that, I haven't looked into specifically what's the mechanism to amend it. I do know it's an important document. There's a reason it's signed by the FinCom chair, the select board, the treasurer, and myself. So I think if there is a direction to potentially amend it, that's something I'm gonna wanna work with our auditor and with Caitlin Gilbert to understand what are the implications of that. But
Okay.
I don't know if it's as simple as that.
So is there any downside to just letting this lie for now? And just not appointing any replacements? For the committee?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it'd be nice to get it squared away before we're at reappointment season next spring.
Okay.
So it's something I can get in motion, as you mentioned earlier. It's just very recent information that the committee members stepped down, so. We have.
I would like to resign too then.
And there's a FinCom member as well, right?
There is, yeah.
Who's that?
Well,
It was Ross.
yeah, it was Ross and, let's see. Oh, he's still on there as shown in the FinCom, so I did update the site to reflect the vacancies, but I overlooked updating the FinCom rep.
All right. So it's just this one section of the investment policy that we were
Correct.
talking about.
Yeah, the rest of it governs all the
Yeah.
legal list and all of that.
Okay.
But this document is provided to Cambridge Trust. It was provided to them when they were initially put under contract, and this is kind of. Yeah, I don't know the full importance of this.
Okay. Oh, excuse me. All right, so just one item for correspondence. This is just an update. Any-
Yeah, I just got the email this afternoon.
Did you?
It was funny, yeah. Explain it in a little more detail and it's a little friendlier. Yeah.
All right, future agenda items, consistent with our discussion at the last meeting, I kind of slated, set up open space related items for the 18th. We'll talk about the town hall right away. ECTA, the policy for Greenbelt acquisition. What?
So, as you know, I think it was the last meeting, I think the board rattled off a number of topics.
Yeah,
So Rebecca keeps a running list. This is obviously a staff list. This is not your list. This is, she shared this with me earlier today and I went through it and added a couple of things too. These are kind of just on our radar. They're not, it's up to the chair to set the agenda, but.
yeah, these are all the items we talked about that I'm calling open space, but they're.
Yeah, right. So, but I thought this might be helpful. I'd actually prepared this partly because of the earlier discussion about kind of priorities, just so we're all realistic about what's already coming down the pike.
Yeah.
So this might be helpful just
Yeah,
to glance
very
through.
helpful.
We generally have done this over the years at a staff level. We keep a running list of future board agenda items. But it's not always been so formal.
Yeah. All right. Anything else from you, Chris? All right,
So if there's stuff as you digest this and Chris as well, in the next couple of days, if you see things that are kind of on your radar that we don't have, or if there's things that are shown here that you don't know what it's all about, or but this is generally stuff that's gonna need board action. It's not like complete this is the board, so.
okay, when are we targeting for the personnel policy amendments?
I would like, well, it's very difficult just because,
Yeah.
I look over the next week and a half and like every hour is accounted for. But I would like to get I'd like to get a hearing notice. It's, I think realistically, honestly, it's gonna be January before we post it. The reason being, I don't wanna send something out right before the holidays, even though I think the amendments are generally positive and favorable. It just creates a certain skittishness and, with all this going on, you know, I don't wanna
Yeah.
stir something up, even though these are positive changes.
Okay. All right, I move we go into executive session, for MGL chapter 38, section 21A1.
Second.
On favor?
Aye.
You leaving, Amanda?
Yes.
Would you mind shutting the door?
Of course, I have a MMA city councilor turning Winston tomorrow.
Oh.
I leave at 6:30.
Oh,
So I have to drive everybody. My car's fast.
Martial arts, you're into that?
Yeah.
Wow.
You don't even know.
God love you. Thanks, Amanda. All right, so for those on Zoom, the board has voted to recess into executive session and will resume open session for the sole purpose of adjournment. Good night.